Stephen was thinking hard about how to console Amy after rejecting her. He typed a sentence, deleted it, and typed another sentence. Stephen was so focused on his phone that he didn't notice Kim coming closer. "Why are you hiding here instead of watching the stream with me?" Stephen almost jumped out of his skin. He forced a smile as he turned to look at her. "No reason." At the same time, he subtly shifted his phone out of view. Unfortunately, this didn't escape Kim's notice. She held out her hand. "Stop. I saw everything. Hand over your phone." Stephen had no choice but to give it to her. His mind raced in a panic. What should I do? If she finds out that Stefan Asher is me, she'll definitely be upset. What if she thinks I'm interested in my sister-in-law? Kim scrolled through the phone for a few seconds before losing interest. When Stephen gave her his phone, he had switched from his messages with Amy to another tab on the A-Live app. "Why didn't you watch Amy's stream with me? Was it too boring for you? Is that why you're watching other streams on your phone?" Stephen was relieved that Kim wasn't too concerned about the details, like why he had the A-Live app downloaded on his phone, or when he had made an account on A-Live. "The thing is, I'm a little nearsighted, so I couldn't see the screen that clearly. I didn't want to bother you, so I decided to check out the A-Live app on my phone instead." Kim wasn't convinced. "You could have just told me." She looked down at his phone and noticed his profile picture in the corner. "This looks familiar." Stephen's heart thundered in his chest. Thankfully, his nickname wasn't on the screen, but once Kim pressed on his profile picture, she would see everything in his profile. He wouldn't be able to talk his way out anymore. Before Kim could do anything, the sound of the door opening distracted her. Natalie was home. The moment she stepped inside, she started nagging. "Stephen, where are you? Can't you see that the floor's dirty? Instead of lazing around all day, you should clean the house." Stephen took his phone back and jumped up from the couch. He looked at Natalie like she was his life savior. "Mom, I'll mop the floor right now." Kim didn't think too much when Stephen ran to the bathroom to grab the mop. "Mom, where did you go today? I have some good news for you. Amy's the new queen of Aquaria Live. It's a streaming platform. Based on tonight's earnings alone, I'm guessing it'll be more than $100 million. The profits immediately caught Natalie's attention. She hurried into the living room and took a seat next to Kim. "What streaming platform? And what did you just say? Over $100 million? "Yeah, let me tell you all about it." Kim informed Natalie of everything that had happened during the stream in great detail. Natalie's eyes sparkled. "Stefan Asher? Who could he be? Someone that rich has to be well known. If you marry the owner of Global Investment and Amy marries Stefan, I won't have to worry about you two anymore." Natalie looked at Stephen, who was bent over and mopping the floor. "It would be even better if someone knew their place and took the initiative to leave." Kim didn't expect Natalie to say that. She tugged Natalie's arm, signaling for her to be quiet. Natalie's mood was ruined, so she went back to her room. If I really left, she would probably regret it, Stephen thought. He wondered what kind of expression Natalie would make if she found out that the owner of Global Investment and Stefan Asher were both him. At this time, Amy was lying on her bed at the university's dorm. Her heart felt empty. Even though she'd won the competition and received a valuable gift, she wasn't happy. Her mind was filled with questions. How could he be married? How could he already have a wife? If he wasn't interested in me, then why did he put so much effort into helping me? I guess my love was doomed to fail from the very beginning, Amy thought. She felt like a protagonist in a melodrama. Amy spent an entire night thinking about Stefan's identity. In the morning, she decided to go home and consult Kim. Otherwise, she would go crazy trying to figure it out herself. Amy was deep in thought as she lounged on Kim's bed. "So after hearing all that, who do you think Stefan Asher is?" "It's weird. He spent a lot of money to help you win. And he also helped us at Elizabeth's boutique. But in the end, he said he's not interested in you." "I know. I don't get it either. I thought about it all night, and I came up with a crazy guess. Do you think he's someone we know? Or could he be someone close to us?" This piqued Kim's curiosity. That's possible. Rather than a stranger, it's more likely for people close to us to help us out. But who could it be? Kim, don't you think Stephen Asher sounds a bit like Stephen Adams? When you asked him to bring me clothes the other day, we had a confrontation with Clara and Brian. At that time, Stephen sounded confident that I would win the bet against Brian. Also, when we were at Elizabeth's boutique, he acted really suspicious. That reminds me, what was he doing during the stream last night? Amy didn't want Stefan to be Stephen, but she had a feeling that they were one and the same. Last night, me and Stephen were watching the stream together, but at some point he kept trying to find an excuse to leave. During the last 10 minutes when you were on stage, he secretly sat to the side and went on his phone. While Kim was telling Amy about last night, she remembered Stephen's profile picture on A-Live. It was a basic picture that Kim guessed was one of the default pictures that A-Live assigned when someone created a new account. It wasn't anything special, but Stefan had the same profile picture. Amy, wait here. Let me go get his phone. A few minutes later, Kim returned to her room with Stephen's phone. She and Amy huddled on the bed and unlocked his phone, which didn't require a passcode or fingerprint. When they opened A-Live, Stephen's account details were already filled in. The moment they signed in, Amy turned around and covered her eyes. I'm too scared to look. Is Stefan really Stephen? Kim looked at the profile and then at Amy. You're not going to believe this, but Stephen is actually a super rich person, she said dramatically. What? No, it can't be true. Amy took the phone from her. She couldn't accept that the person who had helped her out during a difficult time was actually Stephen, a good-for-nothing freeloader and her brother-in-law. Amy's eyes widened when she looked at the screen. His nickname on A-Live was Super Rich Stephen. When Kim saw Amy's nervous expression, she couldn't help but tease her. Why are you so anxious? I was talking about Stephen's nickname. Apparently, he's a super rich man. Amy heaved a sigh of relief. I should have known. Stephen's loaded. How could he be your husband? Anyway, Stephen's really childish. Why would he name himself Super Rich Stephen? Neither Amy nor Kim noticed Stephen eavesdropping outside the door. Thankfully, he had the foresight to register a new account on A-Live before going to bed last night. If he hadn't, his identity would have been exposed. At the villa on the first level, Helen was questioning Rebecca. We've been here for several days now. Have you made any progress? There was dissatisfaction in Helen's voice. When they first moved to this villa, Rebecca had confidently promised that she would win over the owner of Global Investment to their side. But up until now, Rebecca hadn't given her an update. Grandma, you can't blame me for this. It's like he's gone missing. I have no idea where he is. Even if I had thousands of tricks up my sleeve, I wouldn't be able to use them. Rebecca felt cheated every time she thought about how she gave Stephen $2 million to get him to become her informant. Harry stood up and showed Helen his phone. It's not Rebecca's fault. Look, I came across this when I was reading the news today. Helen skimmed the article. What? Someone gave Amy $100 million on a streaming platform? How could she and Kim be this lucky to have two wealthy people supporting them? She was beginning to regret not supporting Kim and her family all these years. You're thinking too much. Why would two wealthy people show up out of nowhere and support them? The person who gave Kim her gifts has to be the same person who gave Amy the $100 million, Harry said. So what you're trying to say is that the owner of Global Investments might have an ulterior motive? Yes. At this rate, it won't be long until Kim's family becomes more influential than ours. Pretty soon, when people hear Casady family, they'll think of Kim's family, not ours. They wouldn't dare. As long as I'm alive, I won't allow this to happen. Grandma, I've been meaning to tell you, but for the past few days, I've been in contact with a wealthy man from Washington, D.C. He's interested in our Century Garden project. He even transferred $100 million into our company yesterday afternoon to show his sincerity. Helen's expression eased after hearing this. That's great news. As expected, I knew I could depend on you. Yes, but there's something else you should know. He's interested in someone in our family, and he said he would invest $1 billion into our company if we let him have her. Helen frowned. A $1 billion investment was tempting. With this amount of money, the Casady Group would be more powerful than before. But exchanging someone from their family for money came with a high risk. If this was exposed to the public, their family's reputation would be ruined. Who is he interested in? Kim, Harry replied. Helen massaged her temples. Why is it her again? Harry, since you've already accepted the $100 million, you probably have a plan, right? Just follow through with it. Okay, I won't let you down. Oh, right. What's his name? Harry hesitated. I thought it was strange when I first heard it, but it's probably a coincidence. His last name is Adams. Late in the afternoon, Stephen prepared dinner. The only thing left to do was wait for Kim to come home from work. While he was walking back to his room, he received a call from Kim. Harry said he's meeting an important client at Rising Star Hotel in the evening. He wants me to go with him. I'll be coming home late tonight, so have dinner without me. Got it. Call me when your meeting's over. I'll come pick you up. Stephen had an uneasy feeling as he ended the call. Natalie overheard his conversation with Kim. Since she's eating at the hotel, set the table already. I'm hungry. Okay. The uneasy feeling in Stephen's stomach gnawed at him as he went to the kitchen to grab the plates and forks. He decided to give Jack a call. Find out where Garrett is. Mr. Adams, our people have been following him around the clock. He's currently at the Rising Star Hotel. Stephen's eyes grew cold. Call for backup and block off the hotel. No one is allowed to leave or enter. It couldn't be a coincidence that Kim and Harry were having a meeting at the same hotel where Garrett was. Yes, sir. I'll head to the hotel right now, Jack said before hanging up. While Stephen was on his phone with Jack, he had subconsciously snapped the metal fork in his hand. He put his phone away and flung the fork into a trash can. Natalie was startled by the loud sound and rushed into the kitchen. She was about to scold him until she saw the dangerous glint in his eyes. Natalie felt a chill run down her spine. She was frozen in place as Stephen walked past her without a word. She didn't move until he left the house and slammed the door behind him. Natalie recovered from her surprise and hurried to the porch. She called out to Stephen, but he was already too far away to hear her. She refused to believe that a youth like him had scared her. Harry, who are we meeting today? You should have told me about this sooner. I wasn't prepared at all, Kim said. After Harry informed her of their sudden dinner arrangement, she had to run to the store and buy a dress. Don't worry, I've arranged everything. Harry led Kim to a private room for VIPs. A young man was drinking wine at the table, and an elderly man stood behind him. Mr. Garrett, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. This is Kim Casady. Kim, let me introduce you. This is Garrett Adams from an influential family in Washington, D.C. Garrett gestured to the chair across from him. Miss Kim, please have a seat. After Kim sat down, Harry decided that this was the perfect opportunity to slip away. Kim, I have a few other clients I've arranged a meeting with. I'll leave Mr. Garrett to you. Have a nice time. Before Kim could react, Harry had already left the room. She called out to him, but he didn't come back. Miss Kim, don't worry. I'm not a scary person. There's no need to be afraid. Garrett had a way with words. His tone of speech was casual and easygoing, and it made Kim lower her guard. Mr. Garrett, let's get down to business. Which project would you like to discuss? Instead of answering her question, Garrett smiled as he swirled the glass of wine in his hand. There's no hurry. Let's have a few drinks first. I apologize, but I have a low tolerance to alcohol, so I won't be drinking any tonight. Is that so? Interesting. No one has ever refused me before. Garrett sat back with a sneer. But you're beautiful, so you can make an exception. Garrett downed the wine in his glass before picking up a fork and tasting one of the dishes. He didn't seem to mind that he was the only one eating and drinking. Kim sat awkwardly as she watched him. 10 minutes later, he put his fork down. Mr. Garrett, can we talk about the project now? Garrett wiped his mouth with a napkin as his gaze raked over her body. Sure, I only came for one reason tonight. I want you. Kim stood up and glared at him. Who would have thought that after waiting for so long, he would turn out to be a pervert? I'm sorry, but I don't think there's a need for us to continue our discussion. Garrett called out to her just as she was about to leave. Is Stephen Adams your husband? Kim turned around. Garrett had the same last name as Stephen. Since he was asking about him, did that mean they were relatives? Yes. Do you know him? Garrett laughed. Know him? He's not qualified to even be in the same room as me. All right, let's stop talking about him. His name alone disgusts me. Let's talk about you. If you let me have you, I'll give you all the money you want. Name your price. Don't push your luck, Kim said through clenched teeth. She didn't want to stay here any longer. When she tried to push open the double doors, she discovered that it had been locked from the outside. Harry must have planned this. Kim's heart pounded in her chest. The way Garrett looked at her made her skin crawl. Give up. I've already gotten what I wanted, and you won't be any different. Tell me, how much do you want? How's $3 billion? Is that enough? Garrett was confident that Kim would give in. After arriving in Los Angeles, he'd investigated Stephen. He had only given Kim a necklace and a villa. There was no reason for her to turn down $3 billion. To his surprise, Kim didn't say anything as she looked at him in disdain. Not enough? You're greedy, but I like it. How's $3.5 billion? Are you done? I'm not some kind of object you can buy. Garrett's voice turned cold. You're unexpectedly bold. Okay, let me give you one last word of advice. If you refuse my offer one more time, you won't be leaving this place alive. The only reason Garrett was offering such a high price was because he wanted to see the look on Stephen's face when he found out that his wife had been defiled by another man. They were interrupted by a knock on the door. The elderly man behind Garrett, who had been quiet all this time, tensed and put up his guard. Who is it? Garrett demanded. We're in the middle of an important discussion. A familiar voice rang out. Kim, move away from the door. Just as Kim stepped to the side, the doors were kicked down. It collapsed onto the floor, and a cloud of dust filled the room. Stephen rushed inside and put his hands on Kim's shoulders. He frantically gave her a once-over. Are you okay? I'm fine, Kim said as she glanced at the shattered doors. She wondered how Stephen could be this strong. Stephen was relieved that Kim was safe and sound. I'm glad you're safe. Leave the hotel immediately. Someone will come pick you up. Wait, I can't just leave like this. Let's call the police. We can't let someone like him roam the streets. Kim looked back at Garrett. Unlike before, the elderly man behind him was exuding a dangerous aura. Stephen tried to reassure her. It's okay. I have a way to deal with them. If the situation escalated, he would have to show some of his real strength, and that would reveal his identity. Kim bit her lip. There was no telling what Garrett and the elderly man were going to do. Stephen was aware of the danger, but all he cared about was her safety. All right, I believe in you, but you have to promise me that you'll stay safe. After Kim left the room, Garrett stood up and clapped. What a touching scene. I didn't think you'd still be alive. I thought for sure you'd died a long time ago. But it doesn't matter. You're nothing but an ant in our family. Garrett broke into a grin. I'll give you two choices. One, break your own legs and return to our family to donate your bone marrow. Two, refuse option one and be killed. Then we'll take your bone marrow. Stephen dusted his clothes and sat at the table. He picked up a fork and ate with relish, as if he hadn't heard what Garrett said. Garrett narrowed his eyes. Interesting. You're different from back then. What exactly have you been up to for the past few years? Stephen was completely different from the timid and cowardly person he used to be. Garrett sat back down. After thinking for a moment, he continued. There's something I'm curious about. It's already a miracle that you survived the gunfight 5 years ago, and now you've accumulated at least several $billion to your name. Why would you become the son-in-law of the Casady family and pretend like you're poor? Garrett had been investigating Stephen since the first day he arrived. The more he investigated, the more surprised he was. Stephen had nothing back then, but he had somehow amassed all of this wealth from out of nowhere. Stephen didn't respond. He continued to eat, and occasionally he would take a sip of wine. The elderly man standing behind Garrett kept his gaze on Stephen. The moment Stephen made a move, he would end him with one strike. Garrett's patience was wearing thin. Considering the way Stephen was treating him, it was clear that he wasn't taking his threats seriously. Just because you have a few billion in your possession doesn't mean you're worth anything. You've always been insignificant, and that won't change. Stephen put his fork down and wiped his mouth with a napkin. He looked like he had eaten his fill. Garrett, do you really think you know me that well after investigating for a few days? The truth is, you know nothing. Stephen fiddled with a skewer as he turned his attention to the elderly man. As for you, Jacob, I haven't forgotten about what you did to Uncle Ian all those years ago. You framed him and almost got him killed. Do you still remember that? Ian was the only person in Stephen's messed-up family who cared about him. In the past, when he was almost beaten to death, Ian risked his life and brought him to a doctor. If it weren't for him, he would have died a long time ago. Because Ian was so good to him, he naturally became a thorn in someone's side. Perhaps it was Garrett, or it could have been his subordinate, Jacob. A cruel smile appeared on Jacob's face. Uncle Ian, huh? He's not worth mentioning. But you did remind me that after I return, I should look after him again. As soon as Jacob finished talking, something on the table caught his eye. There were cracks on the marble surface. How was this possible? This table was at least 8 inches thick. Even if he were to use all of his strength, he would barely be able to form a crack. But Stephen had cracked the surface after a light tap with one finger. His strength was insane. Was this really the same person from the past who was bullied by other people? Garrett was just as surprised as Jacob. How did you do that? I'm warning you. Don't act recklessly unless you want Jacob to kill you. Is Jacob the reason you're acting so arrogant today? Then tell him to kill me. Stephen flicked the skewer in his hand with a smile. As you wish. Jacob, kill him right now, Garrett ordered. But nothing happened. Jacob, are you deaf? Garrett turned around in anger, but he was horrified by the scene before him. Jacob was on the ground, and his eyes were wide open. There was a skewer protruding from his forehead. He was dead. Jacob was well known in the family for his combat skills, but before he had the chance to make a move, he had been killed without a sound. Garrett's expression morphed into one of horror. He couldn't understand how Stephen had changed so much. How did you do that? You're crazy! If Stephen could easily kill Jacob, then what was stopping him from doing the same thing to him? If you kill me, the family won't let it slide. You, Kim, and everyone around you will die with me. Stephen picked up another skewer. This family you speak of is nothing but a waste of my time. As the Grand Palace Master, Stephen's wealth was several 100 million times greater than the Addams family. Garrett's rambling was nothing but an empty threat. Don't be afraid. I won't kill you. You're still useful to me. Go home and pass on my message to that high and mighty family of yours. Tell them that they won't be able to be arrogant forever. The moment I step foot in Washington, D.C. will be their end. Stephen's chilling voice made Garrett feel like prey cowering in front of a predator. If he could leave this hotel alive, he wouldn't go back to Washington, D.C. ever again. Are you letting me leave? Garrett stuttered. Stephen's intense gaze bore into him. Sure. Garrett mumbled a shaky thank you before getting up. His knees went weak from fear, and he fell to the floor. He was afraid that Stephen would go back on his word, so he threw his pride aside and crawled towards the door. Before Garrett could leave the room, Stephen's cold voice sounded behind him. "Since you're incapable of walking, your legs serve no purpose." Stephen flicked several skewers in Garrett's direction. They went straight through his leg and embedded in the floor. Garrett screamed as his blood stained the carpet. Stephen walked past him and left the hotel. Jack was waiting for him outside. "Take care of the body and send Garrett back to D.C. Jack's expression didn't change. "Yes, sir." The palace designated certain people responsible for handling the dirty work. They were experienced at their jobs, and no trace would be left behind. When Stephen went home, Kim ran over and wrapped her arms around him. "You're finally back. I was so worried that something happened to you." It wasn't until today when Kim realized that despite their unconventional marriage, Stephen had become a part of her life. She wouldn't be able to handle it if he disappeared all of a sudden. Stephen returned her hug. "Don't cry, I'm okay. I'm not that weak." Natalie was standing to the side and watching them. She had a feeling that something had happened. "What's going on? Why are you two so close together? If you're trying to take advantage of her, then get lost." Kim snapped out of her daze when Natalie pulled her away from Stephen. She had been so relieved to see that he was safe that she had hugged him without thinking. Her cheeks reddened when she remembered the feeling of his arms around her. Kim looked away from Stephen to hide her embarrassment. "Mom, what are you saying?" "He's not worthy of you. The owner of Global Investment is a much better match." Stephen was already used to Natalie's sharp tongue, and he paid her no mind. His gaze was fixed on Kim's shy expression. She was so beautiful. They were interrupted by the sound of a car driving up to the house. It wasn't long before several members of the Casady family stormed inside. When Natalie saw Helen, she shriveled up like a deflated balloon. "Mom, why are you here so late?" Helen stood tall in front of the crowd. "Natalie, how did you raise your daughter? She's an embarrassment to our family." Kim was at a loss. She didn't go anywhere after coming home from the hotel. For the past hour, she was waiting for Stephen in the living room. "Grandma, what are you saying? Did I do something wrong?" As if on cue, Harry jumped into the conversation. "Don't lie. I already told Grandma what happened. You had an affair with Mr. Garrett at the hotel. Admit it." "Kim, there's no use trying to talk your way out with excuses. Harry witnessed everything. If you still don't admit what you've done, then don't blame me for being harsh." Kim glared at Harry. She knew that this was his scheme to get her kicked out of the Casady family. "Grandma, even if you're upset, you have to allow me to explain. I won't accept punishment unless there's a good reason." Helen took a seat at the head of the table, as if the house was hers. "It's fine if you don't want to say it. Harry, tell us what happened." "After work, I brought Kim to meet an important client from D.C. This was an opportunity to further develop our company. But when we went inside the room, Kim tried to save the client, and she even found some random excuse to kick me out. After that, the two of them were alone in the room for a few hours." Kim understood everything as soon as Harry finished. She had walked right into his trap the moment she showed up at that hotel. "That's nonsense. You're the one who locked me in the room." "Does that mean you're admitting it?" Helen demanded. "You only need to answer yes or no to my question. Do you understand?" When Kim reluctantly nodded, Helen continued. "Did Harry bring you to the hotel to meet a client today?" "Yes." "After Harry left the room, did you stay in there alone with the client?" "Yes, but that's because—" Before Kim could explain, Helen cut her off. "Then Harry is telling the truth. You had an affair with the client. Your actions have disgraced our family, and from today onwards, you and your family will no longer be one of us." Kim gritted her teeth. She was being kicked out of the Casady family because of groundless accusations. If her father were to find out, his condition would worsen. But what could she do? It didn't matter what she said. No one here would believe her. None of them were even willing to listen to her side of the story. They didn't care about what really happened. They only cared about the lies that Harry spun from the facts. The other members of the Casady family looked on in disgust. I was wondering why the owner of Global Investment gave her the Moon of the Nile and this villa. She's always been like this. Our family has always been reputable. She brings us shame. If we don't kick her out of the family now, rumors will spread. Stephen stepped forward and put his arm around Kim's shoulder. It'll be okay. Grandma, if you really wanted to kick Kim out of the family, you could have told her privately. You didn't have to gather all these people here. Since you came in person, I'm assuming you have some conditions of your own, am I right? Helen gave Stephen a pointed look. It sounds like you think you have a say in our family matters, even though you're an outsider. But you're not wrong. Even though Kim has disgraced the family, we're not heartless. We'll give her a chance to make up for what she's done. As long as she agrees to our conditions, we'll forget about her affair. Harry's plan was going smoothly. The outcome would be decided in a matter of minutes. Natalie was standing off to the side. She didn't have the courage to say a single word against Helen. She could only rely on Stephen to speak up for their family. What are your conditions? Stephen asked with a faint smile. First, Kim has to give up her vice president position. Second, she has to give up this villa because she's no longer qualified to stay here. Helen was determined to force Kim to let the members of the Casady family live here. The prestige of this villa would be the catalyst they needed to become an elite family of this city. Stephen's smile widened. So that's what you're after. I was wondering how long it would take you to reveal your greed. The members of the Casady family didn't hesitate to mock him. They were anticipating their move to this villa. Watch what you say. How dare you talk to Grandma like that? Who do you think you are? Grandma is the head of the Casady family. She has a right to live here. Stephen, are you talking back to Grandma because you still want to live here? If the owner of Global Investment found out that Kim had an affair, he would kick all of you out anyway. Kim felt like all of this was unfair. She had only recently become the vice president of the Casady Group, but she had to give it up after a few days. Moreover, even though her name was on the certificate, the owner of Global Investment had given her this villa. She couldn't just hand it over so easily. You can't make such unreasonable demands, Kim said. Harry crossed his arms. How is this being unreasonable? This is what you deserve. Harry, tell me, what time was it when you and Kim arrived at the hotel? And how long did she stay with her client? Stephen asked. So, you want to know the specifics of your wife's affair? I don't mind telling you. We got to the hotel at 7 p.m. She was with the client for at least 2 hours. Stephen shook his head. The times don't match up. If you and Kim arrived at the hotel at 7, then how did she get home by 7:30? And how did she stay with the client for more than 2 hours? Stop lying. There's no way she was home by 7:30. It's fine if you don't believe me. Our house has security cameras. Why don't you see for yourself? Stephen called one of the members of the security team and asked him to send a video of the footage. And just like what Stephen had said, the video showed Kim returning home at 7:30 p.m. Helen glared at Harry, who was in disbelief. Harry had locked the door before he left to make sure that Garrett would succeed. Kim wasn't that strong, so how did she escape? Stephen spoke loudly as he faced the crowd. Harry, are you going to keep this up? Haven't you realized that you've caused a huge mess? What are you talking about? Harry asked nervously. If I'm not wrong, your so-called important client was Garrett Adams, right? He's a member of a powerful family in Washington, D.C., but in order to achieve your goal, you were actually bold enough to scheme against him. Don't you know that scheming against Garrett is the same as plotting against his whole family? Harry broke out in a cold sweat when he realized the gravity of the situation. What? Did something happen to him? I'm friends with Jack Stein's son, and he sent me a message earlier. He told me that Garrett injured his leg, and everyone's rushing to figure out who could have done this to him. Stephen showed them a picture on his phone. In the picture, Garrett's face was twisted in pain, and his leg was bleeding. Everyone fell silent. Harry wasn't the only one in trouble. He was a member of the Casady family, so by extension, all of them were in hot water. Stephen continued in a casual manner. Garrett Adams is rich, and he's someone you shouldn't have offended. Harry, to be honest, I really want to ask you, where did you get the courage to plot against him? Harry grabbed Helen's arm in a panic. Grandma, I didn't do that to him. I'm being framed. Helen pulled away in anger. They had come here to use Kim's crime against her, but Stephen had turned the tables on them. Stephen, how do you know so much? I doubt you figured this out just from a picture. That's not important. Putting Harry aside, you're trying to get your hands on this villa. It seems like you've forgotten the warning on that letter. Helen was concerned as she recalled the warning from the owner of Global Investment. No one is allowed to touch my gifts. How did Stephen know what was written on the letter? Could it be? Are you acquainted with the owner of Global Investment? Helen asked. The truth is, I'm actually his biggest fan, Stephen said proudly. Stephen was a fan of the owner of Global Investment? Everyone present was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. Those who have nothing will always pretend like they have it all. I knew it. Who in this city doesn't know that the owner of Global Investment is Kim's supporter? Stephen couldn't possibly know him. He probably found out that information by chance. Harry glared at Stephen. He was all talk with nothing to show for it. Harry couldn't believe that he'd forgotten about the security cameras around the villas and let someone like Stephen use this to his advantage to gain the upper hand. As for Helen, she was concerned that they had to be cautious of Stephen. Let's go, Helen said. The members of the Casady family followed her out the door. Kim pursed her lips as she looked at Stephen. Time and time again, he had always been nonchalant about her patron helping her and giving her gifts. Today was no different. If Stephen had any feelings for her, wouldn't he at least be a little displeased? Maybe he really didn't care about her. Stephen, are you really not acquainted with the owner of Global Investment? I'm not. You know me. Other than delivering meals and cooking at home, I don't do anything else. When would I have had the opportunity to meet him? Then, are you saying you don't mind that he treats me well? Kim was trying to be mindful of her words, because she didn't want Stephen to think that she preferred her patron over him because of his wealth. Why should I mind? Oh, I see, Kim said with a hint of disappointment. Of course Stephen didn't mind, because he was her patron. However, she didn't know that, and he was aware of why she was asking these questions. He quickly added, It's because I trust you. That's why I don't mind. At his response, Kim's face lit up, and there was a faint blush on her cheeks. Early the next morning, Kim awoke to Amy pounding on her bedroom door. Kim, wake up! Amy sounded anxious. Kim rubbed her eyes and got out of bed to open the door. What's wrong? It's the weekend. Why are you up so early? I want to go back to sleep. Hurry up and change your clothes. What if a certain someone sees? In the bedroom, Kim was still half asleep. Amy grabbed her arms and shook her. Kim, this is a matter of life and it's important. Wake up already. Kim's mind became more jumbled. Okay, stop. I'm awake. Why are you here? Do you know Joe Holloway? Amy asked in a low voice. His name sounds familiar. I think he was my classmate when I was in college. That's what he said too. Joe's a professor at my university and he teaches one of my classes. Oh, really? When I graduated, I heard he wanted to teach. But to be honest, I don't know him that well. That might be true, but I doubt he could forget a pretty girl like you. He asked me to invite you for a meal. Kim refused with no hesitation. I'm not going. Amy put on her best pitiful expression. Please, Kim, you have to help me. I skipped so many classes for A-Live's competition, and I also failed the recent exam. At this rate, I'm going to fail the class. How am I supposed to help you with that? Don't worry, you won't be going alone. I'll be going with you. When we meet up, I want you to help me persuade him not to fail me. I can't repeat the class. Kim sighed. Okay, fine, but I have a condition. Stephen's coming with us. Why would you want to bring him? What if he makes a fool out of himself? And... Amy trailed off when she saw the angry look on Kim's face and had no choice but to agree. Her grades were on the line. Okay, you can bring him if you want to. Amy had to make sure that Stephen kept his mouth shut and didn't say anything unnecessary. If he got on Joe's bad side, she would fail the class without a doubt. Half an hour later, Kim, Amy, and Stephen arrived at the hotel. Joe had been waiting for quite some time. When he saw them, he stood up and went over to greet him. Kim, you're here. Long time no see. You've become even more beautiful. Yes, it's been a while. Joe looked at Stephen, who was standing close to Kim. Oh, this is an unfamiliar face. I'm Joe Holloway, a professor at Amy's university. There was a trace of hostility in his voice, which didn't escape Stephen's notice. Joe Holloway. Your last name is fancy, but your first name is plain. Interesting. Stephen's comment caught Kim by surprise, and she almost laughed out loud. Why was he acting like this? Kim nudged Stephen with her elbow and signaled for him to watch his words. Amy tiptoed and whispered into his ear, Greet him properly. Stephen cleared his throat and smiled. He glanced at Kim before introducing himself. Okay, I'll start over. I'm Stephen Adams, and this beautiful lady is taken. Kim resisted the urge to put her hand over Stephen's mouth. He wasn't wrong, but they were here to save Amy's grades. If he wanted to antagonize Joe, he could have waited until they achieved their goal. Joe wasn't pleased with Stephen's introduction, but he maintained his polite smile. I remember you. You're the famous son-in-law of the Casady family. Yes, that's me. Since this is our first meeting, let's shake hands. Stephen took the initiative and extended his right hand. An idea crossed Joe's mind. He was a professor with a black belt in Taekwondo. It was hardly a challenge, even when he fought 3 or 4 people at once. It's nice to meet you, Stephen. Joe reached out and shook hands. He gradually held Stephen's hand tighter until he was using 70% of his strength. This amount of strength was enough to crush a mug. After a few seconds, Joe realized that something was off. Stephen's expression didn't change at all. He had no reaction. But Joe didn't want to give up here. He used all of his strength in his grip. Stephen was still smiling, but Joe's expression had changed. His features were distorted in pain. Joe quickly pulled his hand back and glared at Stephen. He was about to vent his anger, but when he saw Kim's puzzled expression, he had no choice but to swallow his words. How are you so strong? Joe frowned. Did Kim praise Stephen for his strength because he carried something heavy for her? Or maybe he carried her. Were they that close? Joe ignored Stephen and went back to the table. He pulled out a chair and gestured for Kim to sit. We haven't seen each other in so many years. Why don't you sit next to me? We can take our time and catch up. Kim was planning to refuse, but Amy pulled her towards the seat. Why don't you have a nice chat with Professor Holloway? Stephen and I will sit together. While Amy was talking, she signaled to Kim with her eyes. Kim got the hint. This was an opportunity to save Amy's grades. All right, sounds like a good idea. Stephen didn't have any objections. He was here with them anyway. Whatever tricks Joe had up his sleeve were doomed to fail. Amy sensed that the atmosphere was a bit awkward, so she decided to talk about one of Joe's achievements as an icebreaker. Professor Holloway, I heard you studied at Harvard University for 2 years before graduating. Is that true? Joe looked at Amy in admiration. She was talented in starting conversations. Yes, I learned a lot from my short time there. Amy continued to flatter him while the iron was hot. You're incredible. If I could study as well as you, maybe I could have attended a famous university. Joe smiled and pretended to be modest. Not at all. I'm not that great. He looked at Stephen, who didn't seem interested in the conversation. Stephen, which university did you graduate from? And what did you study? Me? I've never read a textbook in my life, Stephen said lightly. The difference between him and Stephen filled Joe with pride. He glanced at Kim, ready to hear her compliment him. But to his surprise, she was scrolling through her phone, as if she hadn't heard a single word they said. A man from another table noticed Joe. He came over, and they chatted passionately for a while. Professor Holloway, that handsome man just now looks really familiar, Amy said. I think I've seen him somewhere before. Joe used the man's sudden appearance to subtly brag about himself further. He's in Los Angeles for a vacation. He appears on TV a lot, so that's probably why you think he looks familiar. We used to meet up all the time before our lives got busier. What a coincidence to bump into him here. Kim nodded. Joe noticed that Stephen was fiddling with his knife and fork. This was another opportunity to belittle Stephen and make himself look better. Are you not familiar with fine dining? You don't look like someone with a lot of money. I guess you don't come to places like this that often. Every time I'm here, I get to meet famous people from all parts of the world. Are you done yet? As soon as we arrived, you started chirping like a bird. Do you think you're some kind of canary just because you wear gold-rimmed glasses? Kim couldn't help but laugh at Stephen's comment. Amy glared daggers at Stephen. She knew it would be a bad idea to bring him here. Joe almost lost his composure, but he took a deep breath to calm himself down. Kim, this husband of yours is too uncultured. He needs to learn some manners. Kim stifled her laughter when she saw that Joe was upset. She was worried that this would affect Amy. She tried to lighten the mood by bringing up their university. The sound of a piano filled the hotel. Kim was captivated by the music and turned to look at the stage. A young lady wearing a white dress was playing the piano. Her fingers danced across the keys. Joe noticed that Kim was interested. I didn't know you liked classical music. This is Liszt's Liebestrom. I like it, but I don't listen too much. She's really good at the piano, Kim said. You might not know this, but she's an outstanding student at the Bergen Academy of Music. Her name is Tiffany. Do you see that elderly man sitting below the stage? That's Glenn, Tiffany's teacher, and he's a world-renowned pianist. Joe introduced them proudly, as if knowing all these famous people made him more high class. He looked at Stephen and intentionally raised his voice, attracting the attention of many guests at the hotel. From the way I see it, you don't seem to like this piece that much. Why don't you tell us your thoughts? Kim was also curious, and she turned her attention to Stephen. Amy took a sip of her water. Don't get your hopes up, Professor Holloway. How would he know anything about the piano? Despite everything that Amy said, she looked forward to his answer. Stephen put his utensils down when they stared at him intently. Do you really want to hear what I have to say? The three of them nodded. Okay, well, in my opinion, it's terrible. Kim, Amy, and Joe were stunned into silence. Amy was the first to recover from her shock. Stephen, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. Do you know how prestigious Glenn is in the world of classical music? You'll only be embarrassing us if you talk badly about his student. Joe slammed his hand on the table. He stood up and intentionally spoke in a loud voice. How dare you say Miss Tiffany's performance is terrible? The entire hotel quieted down. Tiffany stepped off the stage and strode to their table. Her white dress fluttered behind her. When Joe saw Tiffany approaching, he went up to her and introduced himself. Hello, miss. I'm Joe Holloway, and I'm a university professor. I apologize for disturbing your performance. It's all because of that. Tiffany narrowed her eyes. Move. Joe had no choice but to step aside and let her pass. Tiffany looked down at Stephen as she crossed her arms. Are you the one who said my performance was terrible? Yes, that was me. Tiffany glared at him. Do you know who I am? How dare you insult me like this? What a joke! Are you sure you're a pianist? Tiffany was speechless. No one had ever criticized her so directly before. She refused to admit defeat and continued to pester him. Fine, tell me, how is my performance lacking? Stephen smiled without saying anything. Glenn walked next to Tiffany and stared at Stephen. I've been playing the piano for a very long time, and Tiffany is an outstanding student. Since you've insulted her, I can't let this go. However, if you had a reason for it, then perhaps I can turn a blind eye. Kim looked at Stephen with concern. She regretted asking him to comment on Tiffany's performance. This is your fault, Amy said. You'd better clean up your mess. As for Joe, he quietly stood to the side as the smile on his face grew wider. He didn't even have to lift a finger. Stephen had landed himself in a sticky situation. Glenn slammed his walking stick on the floor. "Start talking." Stephen shook his head. "To think you're a world-renowned pianist, you don't even know how your outstanding student is lacking. To sum it up in one sentence, there was no soul in her performance." Realization dawned on Glenn when he heard these words. With a single sentence, this young man had gotten to the heart of the problem. Truthfully, Glenn was already aware that Tiffany's progress had hit a bottleneck, but he hadn't been able to figure out the cause. That was why he'd accompanied Tiffany to various hotels and restaurants to assess her performances, hoping she would find a breakthrough. Who would have thought that they would come across this brilliant young man today? Everyone in the hotel was astonished when Glenn thanked Stephen sincerely. "Mr. Glenn, why are you thanking him?" Tiffany asked. "He clearly doesn't know what he's talking about." Glenn gave her a stern look. "Tiffany, you've been working hard all these years, and I've been by your side as your teacher. You haven't improved for a long time, but because of this young man, you can now reach the pinnacle of perfection in terms of technique." Kim leaned over the table and whispered to Stephen, "How did you know what the problem was?" Amy was wondering the same thing. "Do you actually know how to play the piano?" Stephen flashed a cryptic smile. "Do you two really want to know?" Kim and Amy nodded. Stephen chuckled as he waved them closer. "All right, come here. You see, this is what I call intuition." With that, Stephen sat back and crossed his arms, smiling proudly. Kim and Amy exchanged a glance. "If you say so." Joe was standing next to the table and heard what Stephen said. For a second, he thought that maybe Stephen was a pianist. Coincidentally, his whimsical guess had turned out to be correct. Stephen glanced at Tiffany. There was a conflicted look on her face. If he couldn't resolve this situation now, things might become troublesome in the future. He told Kim and Amy that he needed to use the bathroom to excuse himself from the table. As expected, Tiffany followed him into the hallway. Stephen turned around. "What is it? Are you still refusing to believe the facts?" "No, I understand the problem now." "Then why are you trying to stop me from going to the bathroom?" Tiffany was nervous as she fidgeted with her hands. She was aware that at some point, her skills had stopped progressing. She never voiced her concerns, but she was desperate to find a solution. "I admit that my performance was lacking, but I don't know how to fix it." Tiffany's love for music reminded Stephen of the priest. They were both passionate about the piano. "I can tell that you really like the piano. You play every note perfectly, but you're missing one thing. To pursue the pinnacle of your talent, you need to put your heart and soul into your performance." "I understand, but that's not easy to achieve," Tiffany said. Stephen smiled confidently. "Is it that hard? All right, go back inside. I'll demonstrate what it means to perform with your heart." "Are you going to play the piano?" she asked in disbelief. "Yes, but you have to promise me one thing. You can't tell anyone that I'm the one playing, not even your teacher. What do you say?" No matter how much Tiffany looked at Stephen, he didn't seem like the musical type. It was more likely that he was knowledgeable about music theory than being skilled at playing the piano itself. "Okay, I promise, but I don't think my teacher's interested in getting to know you anyway." "It's a deal then," Stephen said. Tiffany watched him walk into the presidential suite and wondered if he was acquainted with the owner of the hotel. Not long after Tiffany returned to her table, a beautiful woman wearing a bright red dress came on stage. Her name was Christina Silva, and she was the owner of the hotel. "Everyone, our hotel had the honor of inviting a distinguished guest today. He will be playing the piano. Please pay attention to his performance." The room went dark. A moment later, the lights came back on, and a man in a suit sat in front of the piano with his back facing the audience. Who is he? If Christina invited him, his skills must be top-notch. Yeah, who doesn't know that Christina has a monopoly in the hotel industry? She's also involved in the underworld, and she has connections with one of the most elite families in the city. The audience was amazed that Christina had introduced this man in person. She rarely made an appearance at the hotel, even though she was the owner. The lights were dim, but Tiffany knew that the man on stage was Stephen. She was filled with anticipation. What song was he planning on playing? Amy whispered to Kim, "He's so weird. Why isn't he facing us? Do you think it's because he's not attractive? Kim glanced at Christina, hoping that she didn't hear what Amy said. Don't be rude. In a lower voice, she added, his back looks familiar. I think I've seen him somewhere before. What's the big deal, Joe thought. He's only playing the piano. The man on stage began his performance. A soft tune filled the room. With each press of the keys, the tempo gradually picked up. The audience was entranced, and their hearts pounded in sync with the music. Sometimes it was gentle and warm. Then it was lively and upbeat. At other times, it was slow and melancholic. The audience snapped out of their trance when the performance ended. The man stood up and walked backstage, leaving behind an audience still immersed in the musical atmosphere. Stephen's performance brought tears to Tiffany's eyes. Was this the heart and soul he was talking about? Glenn was awestruck by the man's performance. He looked around, but he didn't know where the man had gone. He wanted him to become his teacher. Amy was in a daze. She couldn't get the melody out of her head. That song was magical. I was happy, excited, and sad all at once. I've never experienced this feeling before. Kim nodded in agreement. Me too. I wonder who he is. He's clearly an expert at the piano. All I know is that he's better than Stephen, who only knows how to talk nonsense, Joe said. Just then, Stephen returned to the table and rolled his shoulder. He hadn't played the piano in a long time. After a few minutes, his muscles were already stiff. Stephen, you just missed the piano performance of a lifetime, Kim exclaimed. Amy had a dreamy look in her eyes. Even though we couldn't see his face, I could tell he's handsome just from looking at his back. If I ever see him again, I'll ask him for his number. Stephen was embarrassed by all the compliments. Was he really that amazing? He could have just been an ordinary person. He probably wasn't that good, right? You're praising him too much. Joe wasn't pleased with what he had said. What right do you have to say that? Speaking of which, what a coincidence. As soon as the pianist finished playing, you came back. Were you afraid of being humiliated by him? Is that why you hid in the bathroom? Stop running your mouth, Stephen said. Joe was about to lose it until he saw Tiffany standing not too far away from their table. Tiffany and Glenn were well-known pianists. They wouldn't let a nobody like Stephen insult a talented pianist. Joe ran up to her. Miss Tiffany, did you hear that? That uncultured man at my table insulted the pianist who just performed. If you tell your teacher, I'm sure I'll teach him a lesson. Did he really do that? Tiffany asked. Yes, I'm telling the truth. Tiffany glanced at Stephen before giving Joe a contemptuous look. You don't know anything. She turned around and left with Glenn, leaving Joe standing awkwardly by himself. Amy was surprised when Tiffany ignored Joe. What's going on? Why is she helping Stephen? Maybe it's because he pointed out the problem in her performance, Kim said. Fine, it's true that he got lucky this time, but if this happens again, I won't let it go. From Amy's point of view, Stephen almost caused a huge mess today. If he had guessed incorrectly about Tiffany's flaw, who knows what could have happened? Christina went up to their table and held out her business card. You must be Kim. This is my card. If there's ever anything you need help with, don't hesitate to come find me. When Christina met Stephen's gaze, she lowered her eyes. Kim was taken aback. Christina was famous in the hotel industry and the underworld, but here she was, offering her business card like it was no big deal. Thank you, Miss Christina. After Kim accepted the card, Christina left the room. Why did she give me this? Amy had a complacent look on her face as she stared at the card. You're awesome, Kim. If Christina has your back, everyone would think twice before plotting against you. When would I even need to call her for help? Anyway, let's get going, Kim said. She left the hotel with Amy and Stephen. When Amy got in the car, she remembered that they were missing someone. She pushed the door open just in time to see Joe standing outside the hotel looking pitiful. Amy rushed over. Professor Holloway, are you okay? I'm fine, thank you, Joe mumbled. He was originally planning to bring Kim home today, but not only had he embarrassed himself, he had even offended Tiffany.
Would you like a ride? Amy offered.
No, that's fine. Please tell Kim that next Monday is our class reunion, and she has to come no matter what. The location will be decided soon. Joe glanced at Kim before hurrying away. He didn't want her to see him looking so miserable. Amy sighed as she walked back to the car. She had failed to get on Joe's good side, so she could only pass on his message.
Kim, Joe said that your class reunion is next Monday. You have to attend.
Kim couldn't resist the pleading look in Amy's eyes. Okay, fine. She hadn't seen her classmates in almost 3 years. Kim, can I go too? Stephen asked. Amy interjected.
Why would you go? Don't you know that Kim's been mocked for 3 years after you two got married? Do you know how much suffering she's been through?
Stephen wasn't aware of this. That explained why he'd never heard of Kim's class reunion. Since this was the case, it was time to change her classmates' impressions. Next Monday, he would make all of Kim's classmates envy her. Kim, can you bring me along? I promise I won't embarrass you. Kim hesitated, but she ended up agreeing. She was already prepared for them to leave early because she didn't want Stephen to be mocked by her classmates. When they returned home, they saw Rebecca standing outside their house. Kim didn't think much of it and went up to her. Rebecca! It's not like he reports this information to me. I only know things here and there from rumors. By the way, now that you know I'm his fan, do you want to invest a little more in me? Rebecca was rendered speechless by Stephen's lack of shame. She regretted asking him for help. With his stupid brain, he would never be able to find anything out. Rebecca glared at him. Return my money. Nope. Even if you want it back, I don't have it anymore. The nonchalant look on Stephen's face infuriated her. How dare you cheat me out of my money? Just you wait. I'll teach you a lesson you'll never forget. Rebecca pushed Stephen out of the way and stormed off. The next morning, Natalie frantically knocked on Kim's and Amy's bedroom doors. Wake up! Your grandma is holding an emergency meeting. Something happened to Rebecca. Kim and Amy rushed out. What happened to her? Stephen heard the commotion and came out of his room. He paused in the middle of stretching when the three of them looked at him suspiciously. They all knew he had a private discussion with Rebecca yesterday. I didn't do anything. I just found out too. Your grandma didn't tell me the details. She only said that it was serious and that we have to go to her house right now, Natalie explained nervously. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Helen's villa. All the members of the Casady family were present. Helen was sitting at the head of the table with a worried expression on her face. Stephen looked around and spotted Rebecca crying while crouching in the corner. 3 people, who appeared to be her friends, surrounded her. Rebecca raised her head when she heard footsteps. If it weren't for one of her friends holding her back, she would have lunged at Stephen. This is all because of you! My life is ruined. Stephen was confused. What did I do?
Helen cleared her throat to get everyone's attention. Everyone in the family is here. Rebecca, come forward and tell us what happened. Rebecca bit her lip and stood up. Yesterday afternoon, Stephen got on my nerves, so I invited my friends to the bar for a drink. While we were there, someone came over and molested me. I already had a few drinks, so I was a little tipsy. I grabbed the bottle of wine and swung it at him, but I didn't expect him to be knocked out in one strike. Perry spoke up for her. Grandma, she only hit one person. There's no need to be this nervous. Be quiet. Rebecca, keep going. It wasn't until this morning when I found out that the person I hit last night was actually the son of the president of the Business Alliance. I really didn't expect this to happen. If I knew who he was, I wouldn't have done anything to him, no matter how angry I was. The members of the Casady family were shocked by this revelation. What? The Business Alliance is involved? Do you know what this means? They're a terrifying commercial organization. I heard that 10 years ago, a powerful family in Los Angeles fell to ruin because they offended the Business Alliance. They were forced to hang themselves. Several people started to ridicule Rebecca for being careless. All of you quiet down, Helen yelled. She took out a letter from her pocket and gave it to the table. The president of the Business Alliance already sent me a warning. We have to give him an answer by the end of today. Otherwise, our family will disappear. Everyone panicked. The Business Alliance was powerful. They had the means and the resources to wipe out an entire family. Destroying their family would be a simple task for them. Grandma, did they tell us how to settle this? Someone asked. Yes, but it's not a favorable condition for Rebecca. The president asked for her to accompany his son for 3 days. He even wrote that it doesn't matter if she's alive or dead. Everyone understood the implications of this letter. Were they going to sacrifice their entire family for a single member, or would they sacrifice one person for the sake of their family's survival? The president of the Business Alliance was forcing them to make a choice. Once Rebecca fell into his son's hands, she would suffer unimaginable torture. No, I'm not going. I'd rather die now, Rebecca cried. Her friends, who had gone to the bar with her last night, were also here. They tried their best to comfort her. My dad holds an authoritative position in the city. I'll ask him for help. Yeah, don't worry. I'll ask my mom to negotiate with the president. The other friend recalled something. Rebecca, I remember there was a man who chased after you when you were in school. His dad is the vice president of the Business Alliance. A glimmer of hope flickered in Rebecca's eyes. Wait, you're right. I'll call him right now. He must have a way for me to get out of this. When the call went through, Rebecca spoke like he was her lifeline. 3 minutes later, she hung up. He told me to relax and that his dad is going to have a talk with the president. This will all be resolved soon. Let's hope so, Helen said in a resigned tone. Compared to the influence of the Business Alliance, the Casady family was powerless. One of the Casady Group's employees rushed into the room with a panicked expression. The Business Alliance just issued a restraining order for all enterprises in the city. They're strictly prohibiting anyone from interacting with the Casady family. Those who disobey the order will be expelled from the Business Alliance. As soon as this restraining order was issued, the Casady Group's stocks plummeted. In just half an hour, we've already lost almost $100 million. Helen slammed her fist on the table. The Business Alliance is simply going too far. Rebecca, there's no way out of this. Take responsibility for the trouble you've caused. I'll give you until tomorrow morning. If you still haven't found a solution by then, I'll personally hand you over to his son. After realizing how powerful the Business Alliance was, Rebecca's so-called friends cut off their friendship before leaving one after another. Rebecca, I'll be leaving first. Our family will be traveling abroad soon, so we might not be able to help you anymore. Same here. My mom's actually been admitted to the hospital, so there's nothing she can do to help. I'll be going now. My family needs help with their farm. See you later. After the three of them shuffled out of the house, Rebecca stood up in a daze. To everyone's surprise, She went up to Kim and kneeled in front of her. Kim, please help me.
You want me to save you? Kim asked in surprise. Rebecca had always treated her like she was an enemy, but now she was throwing her pride away and asking her for help. But this involved the president of the business alliance. How could she save Rebecca? Yes, you're the only one who can help me. You have the owner of Global Investment on your side. If he's willing to help, the business alliance is nothing. To Rebecca, the owner of Global Investment was her only hope. There was nothing she wouldn't do when her life was on the line. Even if she had to die, she would never give herself to that man from last night. Kim glanced at Stephen. She was worried that he would misunderstand her connection with their patron. Rebecca, I don't know him. And even if I do reach out to him, he might not want to help. How could you not know him? He gave you the Moon of the Nile and the villa. Who do you think you're trying to fool? Okay, I understand. You hate me and you want me to... Rebecca stood up when an idea crossed her mind. We're all members of the Casady family. Are you that heartless that you would watch one of your own people lose her life? Rebecca's words struck a chord with the other members of the Casady family. They rushed to support her. Kim, even if you and Rebecca had conflicts in the past, this is for the sake of her future. Can't you help her when she's in a time of need? That's right. You have connections with the owner of Global Investment. Why don't you at least try to ask him for help? Kim, are you really going to force Rebecca onto that crazy man? In an instant, Kim and Rebecca's roles had been reversed. Rebecca was the one who made a mistake, so why was everyone suddenly against her? Furthermore, Kim had been keeping the necklace in the bank safe, and her family was only staying at the villa temporarily. Once she met her patron, she would return these gifts to him. Even if she did somehow find a way to contact him, how could she shamelessly ask for help during their first conversation? And there was no guarantee that he would agree to her request either. Helen, who had been silent for a while, chimed in. Kim, blood is thicker than water. Even though I named you as the successor at the press conference, the end result will depend on your contributions and the family's wishes. While Helen hoped that the owner of Global Investment could resolve this crisis, she also wanted to gauge him and Kim's relationship. Stephen whispered into Kim's ear. Since that's what Grandma wants, just say yes. Who knows? Maybe the owner of Global Investment will agree to help. Anyone with common decency would save a woman from an evil man's schemes. We can't let situations like this keep happening. Kim couldn't understand what was going on through his head. Even if Stephen did trust her, how could he not suspect her of having an affair with her patron when everyone around them was making these accusations? And how could he come to a decision so easily? Couldn't he tell that she was hesitating out of consideration for his feelings? Moreover, why was he so relaxed? Was it because he didn't care about Rebecca, or was it because he didn't care about his family? In Helen's perspective, not only was Kim ignoring her, she was also flirting with that Stephen. Kim, did you hear what I said? Kim had no choice but to agree. Of course, Grandma. I'll see what I can do. We can't let men treat us this way. Good. I'll try to drag this out for 2 more days. You have to come up with a solution. Rebecca's teary face from earlier was nowhere to be seen. Kim, if you don't try your hardest to help me and something happens to me, everything will be your fault. After returning home, Natalie's expression turned sullen. How did things turn out like this? Why is everyone putting the blame on you? Amy was also concerned. She logged into A-Live to see if she could ask Stefan for help, but he hadn't been online since she won the competition. We've never seen the owner of Global Investments before. We can't ask him for help if we don't even know how to contact him. I know that, Kim replied impatiently. She was already annoyed that Stephen had told her to say yes to Helen's demands, but she was exasperated when she saw him sitting on the couch watching TV like nothing had happened. Stephen, do you have a plan? Of course I do. I'll go out and buy a bottle of cheap wine later. I'll have it delivered to that president or whoever he is.
He'll realize his mistake and happily apologize, Stephen said. Kim was so shocked that she couldn't say a word. He thought the president of the business alliance would be bribed by a bottle of cheap wine? And he would even go as far as to apologize? Keep dreaming, Stephen, Kim thought. She was so mad that she wanted to snatch that remote out of his hands and turn off the TV. Before Kim could give in to her anger, the doorbell rang. When Stephen went to open the door, he was surprised to see that it was Joe. Joe was dressed more extravagantly than the last time he saw him, and a pile of expensive gifts were in his arms. Amy stood up from the couch and waved.
Professor Holloway, you're here. Come in and have a seat. Mom, this is my professor. I missed a lot of classes, so I asked him to come over and help me with my studies.
Joe treated Stephen like he was invisible and walked past him into the living room. Joe was fascinated by the luxurious furnishings, but it made him more resentful of Stephen. He had nothing going for him, but he somehow married a beautiful woman like Kim. He was even living in this fancy villa for free. Joe greeted Natalie and gave her the gifts he brought. Natalie had a good impression of him.
Thank you, Professor Holloway. I have some business to attend to, but please treat this place as your own home. Enjoy your stay.
After she left, Joe took a seat on the couch. He noticed that Kim and Amy seemed worried about something.
Did something happen?
Amy decided to tell Joe the situation with Rebecca and the business alliance, because he might have a way to get them out of this mess.
Is that why you all look so worried? The president of the business alliance is Phillip Pace, and he's my uncle. You can leave this to me.
Are you serious? Is Phillip really your uncle?
Amy exclaimed. Kim didn't expect this either. As for Stephen, he continued to watch TV, as if this didn't concern him. Joe took out a photo from his wallet.
Yes, look at this. It's a picture we took at our family dinner last month.
In the photo, Phillip had his hand on Joe's shoulder. They looked like they were close. Amy tugged on Kim's arm and prompted her to say something. Ever since they returned from the emergency meeting, Kim had been thinking hard about how to contact her patron. But with Joe here, maybe their problem would be resolved without a hitch. Thanks, Joe. You're a big help. Please let your uncle know that we'll pay for his son's medical bills and provide compensation. We only hope that this whole mess can go away. Joe could tell that Kim's attitude towards him had improved slightly. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He would show Kim that he was a much better option than Stephen.
Don't worry, I'll do what I can.
Stephen didn't miss the complacent glances from Joe.
So what if he's your uncle? I bet my bottle of wine will be more helpful.
Amy crossed her arms.
You're the one who encouraged Kim to agree to Grandma's demands at the meeting. But when we came back, you didn't even have a solution. Professor Holloway is offering to help us. Is that all you have to say to him?
Don't be mad, Amy. We can't blame him for his poor background. If he had the connections and furthered his studies, he would have come up with a solution too, Joe said.
Stephen, you should learn a thing or two from Professor Holloway. This is what a capable man looks like.
Kim intervened to prevent the argument from getting out of hand. Amy, that's enough. Didn't you ask Professor Holloway to come over and help you with your studies? Amy was reluctant because she still had more to say, but she ended up heading to another room with Joe so he could tutor her. When Kim was alone with Stephen, she tried to console him. Amy didn't mean it like that. You know how she is. She doesn't think before talking. Stephen smiled. I know, I didn't take it to heart. Also, Kim added, there's nothing going on between me and the owner of Global Investment. She was embarrassed after saying this and ran off to her room. Stephen let out a sigh. They were married. How was this nothing? But he couldn't tell her that yet. 1 hour later, Amy and Joe returned to the living room.
Kim, Professor Holloway's usually busy, so it's rare for him to have a day off. Why don't we go out together for a change of pace?
Kim was planning on refusing, but then she remembered Amy's grades. All right, where do you want to go?
There's a beautiful lake near the outskirts of the city. I heard the view is great at this time of year.
Joe turned to Stephen with pity in his eyes.
Why don't we ask Stephen to come along? He's been cooped up in the house all day watching TV.
Kim and Amy were confused as to why he wanted Stephen to come. It was obvious that they weren't on the best of terms. Stephen didn't expect Joe to invite him either. He probably had an ulterior motive.
Stephen put down the remote and looked at him. I'm not bored because my wife's home, but sure, I'll tag along. Joe's smile faltered, but he quickly composed himself. It's not every day we hang out, so you'd better take care of yourself. There was an underlying warning in Joe's words, but Stephen ignored it. Let's go, Kim and Amy. He held Kim's hand and led her to the door. Just you wait, Stephen, Joe thought. I'll show you how capable I really am. He took out his phone and sent a message. Proceed as planned. When Joe went outside, he shook his head in disapproval when he saw Stephen's car. Why don't I drive you all in my... I'm afraid his car will break down in the middle of our trip. Amy looked at Kim expectantly.
We have a lot of people today, so we might as well take him up on his offer. I also want to experience riding in a...
Kim glanced at Stephen for his opinion. I don't care. If he wants to drive, I'm not going to stop him, Stephen said as he got in the back seat of Joe's car. Joe opened the door to the front seat. When he was about to ask Kim to get in, she followed Stephen and sat next to him.
Professor Holloway, can I sit there?
Amy asked excitedly. Joe frowned as he watched Kim and Stephen chatting while sitting closely to each other. He forced a smile and turned back to Amy. Of course you can. Half an hour into their journey, Stephen noticed that they weren't on the right path. Are you sure you know how to get there? This isn't the right way. Kim looked at the scenery outside and realized he was right. It's a shortcut. It'll save us half the time, Joe answered absent-mindedly. He glanced at his watch and wondered why it hadn't shown up yet. In order to get back at Stephen and get closer to Kim, he had spent a lot of money to hire a group of local thugs. According to their plan, Joe would let Stephen make the first move. Towards the end, it would be his time to shine. He would show off his taekwondo skills and become the hero who would save the heroine. Joe finally spotted a group of thugs when he drove to the intersection. He stepped on the accelerator and sped towards them. At the last second, he stomped on the brakes, and the car came to an abrupt stop right in front of them. The group of 4 thugs surrounded the car. One of them knocked on the window next to Joe. Get out of the car now! Amy shrunk back in fear when the thugs peered into the car with menacing expressions. When Kim subconsciously leaned closer to Stephen, he pulled her into his arms. Joe plastered a frown on his face and looked over his shoulder. This is bad. Stephen, go out and have a talk with them. Stephen had seen through Joe's plan the second these people showed up. He met Joe's gaze and smiled. No. Joe didn't give up and continued to persuade him. It's your fault I didn't notice them, because I was too busy talking to you. However, Joe had underestimated Stephen's lack of shame. He continued to refuse. You're the driver. You should get out. Joe tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Stephen, a man should be brave. I know. That's why I'll bravely protect Kim and Amy inside the car. The man who had knocked on the car window was the leader of the group. He impatiently picked up a brick from the ground when he saw that no one was getting out. Since you don't want to come out, don't blame me for destroying this car of yours. The man raised his hand and brought the brick down, smashing the side mirror. Joe gritted his teeth as he stared at the broken mirror on the ground. He had asked his secretary to hire a group of thugs, but where did he find these people from? His car was expensive. Amy had never experienced this kind of situation before.
Professor Holloway, should we call the police?
She suggested in a shaky voice. No, the thugs in this part of the city are aggressive and ruthless. If they find out that we reported them to the police, they'll come after us in the future, Joe warned. But the real reason was that he couldn't get the police involved. There was a chance that these thugs would sell him out. If the police discovered that they were working together to cause trouble, he would be arrested as well. Joe looked at Stephen in disdain. You guys wait in the car. I'll go out and reason with them. Amy saw that Stephen had no intention of moving.
Can't you even be 1/10 of Professor Holloway? You only know how to hide and be a coward.
Stephen was relaxed, as if he couldn't hear anything they said. Forget it, Amy. You can't blame him because he's a coward by nature, Joe said. He got out of the car and faced the group of thugs. This car is mine, and I'm also the one who drove. There's too many eyes on us. Why don't we head somewhere quiet and talk this out? Who do you think you are to be acting so full of yourself in front of us? If you want to go somewhere else, then fine. You asked for it. Let's see what you're up to. The man instructed 2 of his men to grab on to Joe and told the remaining person to keep an eye on the 3 people in the car. The thugs dragged Joe away and turned the corner. When they reached an alley, Joe exploded in anger. Why are you still holding on to me? Let go! Haven't you realized who I am? You'd better be careful, or I won't let you get away with disrespecting your boss. The 3 men had no idea what Joe was talking about. How dare you talk to us like that? And since when were you our boss? Joe pushed them away. You don't want the money anymore? Just because you've set a reputation for yourselves, thugs will always be thugs. Don't think you're worth anything. If you know what's good for you, listen to your boss. The leader of the group didn't feel the need to keep talking. Joe finally came to his senses when they stepped away from him. These weren't the lowly thugs that his secretary had found. They were part of an influential group in the underworld. I was wrong. The man in the car is my boss. He's the one who ordered me to curse at you. The leader of the group told the other 2 men to drag the boss in question to the alley. It wasn't long before they came back with Stephen. Are you the one who told him to mess with us? Stephen feigned surprise. What are you talking about? Do you know who I am? I'm Stephen Adams, the son-in-law of the Casady family. Haven't you guys heard of me? So, their family's son-in-law really was a pretty boy, the man said. Hey, how dare you lie to me? You're the owner of a... How could someone like him order you around? Do you think we're idiots? Stephen looked on indifferently. Can I leave now? The man waved his hand dismissively. Get out of here. The people I hate the most are rich who think the world revolves around them. All right, you did a good job. I'll be sure to mention you guys to Christina. Stephen gave the 4 men a card before walking away. The 3 men looked down and were instantly filled with fear. This was Christina's business card. Amy looked around worriedly when Stephen returned to the car alone.
Where's Professor Holloway?
Stephen shrugged. He and those 4 guys got along pretty well. He said he wanted to have a meal with them and told us to head home. Kim and Amy had their doubts, but they decided not to question it. After sending Kim and Amy back to the villa, Stephen drove to a small store. He strode to the counter. Boss, do you have the cheapest wine in stock? 5 minutes later, Stephen walked out of the door with a bottle of wine that cost $2. Before he left, he called out to the owner. Boss, if you lied to me and there's a cheaper wine at your store, I'll come back and return this. The owner was dumbfounded. Every time you come here, you always buy strange things. Stephen waved and left. The owner couldn't help but smile. Regardless of Stephen's eccentricities, he was an interesting person. Sometime later, Stephen arrived at the Business Alliance's headquarters. A security guard blocked his way when he was about to enter. May I ask who you're looking for? I'm looking for Phillip. The security guard's expression darkened when he noticed Stephen's cheap clothes. Who gave you the right to say his name without honorifics? Do you know where this is? I'll say this one last time. I'm here for Phillip. Tell him to come down, Stephen said impatiently. Who do you think you are? You have no right to meet him. Leave now. I'm only here to give your boss a gift. You forced my hand, so don't blame me for what happens next. Just as Stephen was about to force his way in, a car drove up to the entrance. A few people helped a man wrapped in bandages out of the car and onto a wheelchair. It was Joe. He glared at Stephen when he saw him. Is this the mummy who I think it is? Stephen mocked. When they encountered the group of thugs earlier, he had noticed their tattoos. They had connections with Christina's network in the underworld. That was why he hadn't made things difficult for them. And besides, they were only underlings. They wouldn't go as far as to kill a random person who crossed them. Stephen, I'll make you pay for this. Stephen ignored Joe and turned back to the security guard. Can I go in now? Joe smirked. Are you trying to meet with my uncle? Do you want to beg for Rebecca? Forget about it. He motioned the other security guards further down the street. After giving his orders, Joe told his assistant to push him inside. After they left, a group of security guards blocked the entrance. Did you hear that? This isn't a place just anyone can enter. Then go and report to your boss that Stephen Adams is here. Tell him to come down and see me immediately. The security guards laughed. So, you're the son-in-law of the Casady family. I heard your wife received an expensive necklace and house from the owner of Global Investment. The other security guards surrounded Stephen. You're making a mistake. If you won't leave, then we'll have to use force. The security guard on the ground called out to his colleagues. Stephen sighed and took out his phone to make a call. At this time, Joe was with his uncle in his office on the 88th floor. Phillip was worried when he saw how badly Joe was injured. Joe is his sister's son, and he was very fond of him. What happened? Did someone do this to you? Tell me who did this. I'll get someone to take care of them. It's fine. I already know how to deal with him. There's no need for you to worry. Good. Take revenge for yourself. But Joe, you're injured. Why aren't you resting at the hospital? Why did you come here? Joe chose his words carefully. Actually, I came to discuss a personal matter with you. I heard my cousin got hurt yesterday. The person who did that to him is my friend. Do you think you can... Phillip interrupted him. If you're here for that, there's no need to say anything more. Go back to the hospital and rest. Don't make your mom worry. As for Rebecca, I'll make sure her entire family is ruined. Did she think she could get away with this just because she's from the Casady family? Their family is worthless compared to the business alliance. Joe didn't think that was a bad idea. You're right. Rebecca was the one who hurt him. We need to teach her a lesson. Uncle Phillip, if you're going to take down the Casady family, remember to leave Kim alone. I'll be the one to have her. Did you take a liking to her? All right. Go back and tell Rebecca that she has two options. I want to either see her in my room or my son's room. Otherwise, the Casady family will disappear from Los Angeles. After Joe agreed, Phillip's phone rang. When he heard the voice of the person on the other end of the line, his haughty attitude disappeared. Mr. Stein, how can I help you?
Oh, you still remember who I am? I thought you'd already forgotten me, and who the business alliance belongs to.
I wouldn't dream of forgetting. I know my place, Phillip said nervously. The Business Alliance was an organization that spanned the entire city of Los Angeles. They were the lifeline of all of the enterprises. However, he wasn't the one in charge. It was the palace.
If you know that, then hurry up and go downstairs to meet the person waiting for you. Whether you survive or not will depend on him.
Phillip started panicking when Jack hung up. He called the front desk and asked them if there was really someone who wanted to meet with him. Mr. Pacey, you don't have to worry about him. He's just some random passerby looking for trouble. We'll take care of it. Phillip shouted into his phone. Are you guys out of your mind?
Don't lay a hand on him or I'll fire all of you,
Phillip yelled before hanging up. The person downstairs had to be someone from the palace. Uncle Phillip, what's going... Before Joe could finish, Phillip cut him off. Be quiet. Stay in the office. Don't go anywhere. I have to go downstairs and meet someone important. Phillip rushed out the door, leaving Joe alone in the room. Phillip had always been calm and composed. Joe had never seen him panic before. He thought of Stephen. Could it be? Was Phillip panicking because of him? As soon as this thought crossed his mind, Joe dismissed it. No, it couldn't be. Stephen was incompetent and useless. Phillip would never be afraid of him. At this time, the security guards were questioning the receptionist, who had just gotten off the phone with Phillip and hurried outside. The security guards exchanged nervous glances before looking at Stephen. They almost made a huge mistake. When the elevator doors opened, Phillip ran across the lobby and rushed out of the building. He took a second to catch his breath before yelling at the security guards. "What do you think you're all doing? Why are you surrounding him? Get out of the way!" Everyone, with the exception of Stephen, held their breath when they saw Phillip. He was too afraid to even look him in the eyes. "Hello, sir." Everyone was dumbfounded. Phillip never bothered to go downstairs to greet anyone, not even when the head of the elite families came to visit. He would sit in his office and wait for them to come to him. "Do you already know who I am?" Stephen asked. Phillip kept his head lowered. "No, I don't, but I do know that you're someone I should respect." Stephen couldn't afford to let that many people know about his identity right now. "There's too many people here. Take me somewhere we can talk privately." The two of them went to the back of the building where no one was around. Stephen gave Phillip a cold look. "I'm here to tell you two things. One, tell your precious son to leave the city. I don't want to see him again. Two, visit the Casady family tomorrow and apologize. That's not that difficult, right?" Stephen didn't want to interfere with the palace's internal affairs right now. Otherwise, he would have kicked Phillip out of the city along with his son. He couldn't stand men who treated women violently. "No problem at all. Thank you, sir." He was relieved that Stephen was letting him off easy. At the same time, he was envious of the Casady family. They were lucky to have the support of someone from the palace. "Also, I'm keeping my identity a secret for the time being. If you tell anyone, be prepared for the consequences." When Stephen was about to leave, he remembered something. He took the bottle of wine out of the bag and tossed it at Phillip. "This is for you. Finish it well." By the time Stephen went home, Amy had returned to her dorm to prepare for midterms. Kim was in the living room, chatting with someone he didn't recognize. "Oh, Stephen, you're back. Where did you go?" "Let me introduce you. This is my friend, Caitlin. She was my classmate when I was in college. She's been away from the city for the past 3 years, and she only recently came back." Caitlin mocked Stephen. "So, you're Kim's good-for-nothing, freeloader husband." Kim and Caitlin were best friends, but Caitlin always believed Stephen had ruined Kim's life and her chances at happiness when they married. Stephen smiled in return. He didn't want to make things difficult for Kim by talking back. "Hey, watch it," Kim warned as she tugged Caitlin's arm in annoyance. "Did I say anything wrong? He barely brings home any money, and he's always wandering around out there. Isn't that the definition of a freeloader?" Caitlin had more to say, but she decided to drop it when she saw that Kim was getting upset. "Oh yeah, I heard that Joe's interested in you. He's from a prestigious family, and he's also a professor at such a young age. Don't you think he's a good catch?" "Don't talk nonsense. I'm married, and Joe isn't my type." "Whether he's your type or not, he likes you. I heard he's trying his best for the reunion next Monday. He's preparing a surprise for you." Caitlin was talking loudly on purpose so Stephen would hear her, but he didn't look bothered. He continued to watch TV as if they weren't talking about another man trying to go after his wife. Kim gave Stephen an apologetic look. "Caitlin, if you keep talking nonsense, I'm really going to get mad." Before they could continue their conversation, Natalie rushed into the house. "What's wrong, Mom?" Natalie took a deep breath to calm down. "All of you should be careful when you go outside. Do you know Christina Silva? She's famous in the underworld. I heard she's got into some kind of conflict with several powerful people. There's been so many thugs on the streets these days." Stephen kept his eyes on the TV, but he was contemplating what Natalie said. Los Angeles was the largest city in California, and Christina's network in the underground was extensive. But it didn't make sense for her to feud with random people all of a sudden. Unless there was something or someone in the city these people wanted to get their hands on. The next day, Helen held another meeting to discuss Rebecca's situation.
Kim, have you contacted the owner of Global Investment yet?
Grandma, it's only been one day. I'm still trying to think of a solution. Rebecca jumped out of her seat.
What did you say? You're still trying to contact him? Kim, do you want to see me? If I get sent to that disgusting man's house, I'll never let you get away with this.
Helen also wasn't happy with Kim. After yesterday's meeting, she had put aside her pride and begged for Phillip's son to forgive Rebecca. One day had passed, but Kim didn't make any progress.
Explain yourself,
Helen demanded. Kim glanced at Stephen for help. After all, he was the one who had confidently told her to agree with Helen's demands. But Stephen didn't seem interested in the conversation. He was eating the snacks on the table without a care in the world. I really don't know how to contact him, Kim said. But the president of the Business Alliance has a nephew, and I've asked him for help. Maybe he can turn things around.
I don't care what you've done. I only want results. Give him a call right now.
Stephen pointed to the door with a smile. There's no need to call him. He's here. Joe arrived in a wheelchair with Amy pushing him into the house. Kim's eyes widened when she saw Joe wrapped in bandages. He was fine the last time she saw him. Joe, what happened? Joe glared at Stephen. Next Monday, he would make Kim his. It's nothing serious. I just need to rest for a few days. I'll be fine by next Monday for the class reunion.
Kim, we're not having this meeting so you and him can reminisce about the old days, Rebecca said impatiently. Hurry up and ask him how it's going.
Helen greeted Joe politely because he was Phillip's nephew.
Excuse me, how should we address you?
Joe introduced himself proudly. It's nice to meet you, Miss Helen. I'm Joe Holloway. I'm a professor at Amy's University. And I'm also Phillip Pace's nephew.
I apologize for getting straight to the point, but could you give us an update on Rebecca's matter?
Helen asked. Kim spoke up when Joe looked at her. You can tell us. Whether you succeeded or not, I'm still grateful to you all the same. Ever since I promised Kim that I would take care of it, I've been treating this as an urgent issue. Yesterday, I personally went to the Business Alliance headquarters to meet with my uncle. He was really angry because he cares a lot about his son. I tried to persuade him to forgive Miss Rebecca for making a mistake, and I also passed on Kim's message that the Casady family would compensate for the medical expenses. My uncle was actually ready to settle the matter peacefully, but who would have thought? Joe paused and stared at Stephen. Let's see how you talk your way out of this one, he thought. Helen was relieved when she heard that Phillip was planning to let it go.
Please continue.
Who would have thought that someone would show up unannounced? He made my uncle so angry that he changed his mind. My uncle even said that he would make the Casady family pay.
What? Who was it?
It was Stephen. He barged into my uncle's office and cursed at him. He said the Casady family is more powerful than the Business Alliance, and he threatened to harm his son. Helen stood up and glared daggers at Stephen.
If you married into our family, that means you represent us. Why did you go there and say something that crazy?
Rebecca rushed in front of Stephen.
You intentionally forcing me into a corner, aren't you?
Before she could grab his collar, Kim intervened. Stephen, is that true? Stephen leaned over the table and casually reached for another snack. Half of it. Only half of it? Joe echoed. Let me ask you, did you go to the Business Alliance headquarters yesterday? Yes, I did. I went there to give your uncle a gift. Stephen made it sound like it had cost him a fortune. Kim sat back down and massaged her temples. Why was he always causing trouble for her whenever she was in a difficult situation? But that's not all, Stephen said. The answer Phillip gave me was very different from how you made it out to be. He was polite. He said my gift was exceptional and that he would visit the Casady family today and apologize. Silence filled the room. Everyone stared at Stephen like they were looking at a madman.
Why would he be coming here to apologize?
Stephen, that's enough, Kim shouted. Stop talking nonsense. I'm tired of always getting caught up in your mess. I won't ask you for help anymore, okay? Just please stop making things worse. Stephen fell silent. Maybe he was taking things too far when no one knew his real identity. Okay, I'm sorry, he said softly. Rebecca couched on the floor in defeat.
Kim, you and Stephen planned this together, didn't you? Your goal is to get rid of me, am I right?
Helen looked around.
What are you all waiting for? Tie him up and throw him in front of the Business Alliance headquarters.
Several members of the Casady family surrounded Stephen. Joe grinned. Today, he would make sure that Stephen was kicked out of the Casady family. Just then, a booming voice came from outside the house. Sorry for the interruption. I'm Phillip Pace, the president of the Business Alliance. I'm here to apologize. Joe didn't believe for a second that Phillip was really standing outside the house. Phillip had no intention of giving in yesterday. How could he have changed his mind overnight? That was impossible. Stephen, I didn't think you had it in you. Did you really find an actor to pretend to be my uncle? If I didn't come today, you would have deceived your entire family. Helen was of the same mind. She didn't think Phillip would apologize in person unless he went crazy.
What are you waiting for, Stephen? Didn't you hear what he said? Hurry up and chase away that imposter at the door. Your scheme's been exposed. You'll only be embarrassing yourself if he comes in.
I suggest you let him in, or else I'm afraid he'll regret it for the rest of his life, Stephen said. Miss Helen, since he doesn't want to admit it, we should let that imposter in. Let's see how talented this actor is. Joe was Phillip's nephew, so Helen had no choice but to do as he said.
All right, let him in.
When the door opened, a man rushed into the room and kneeled on the floor with his head lowered. Lift your head and let us see your face. How dare you pretend to be my uncle? Joe said. The moment the man looked up, Joe's smile disappeared. Uncle Phillip? Is it really you? Everyone was in disbelief. Helen swallowed hard. It really was the president of the Business Alliance. Phillip glanced at Joe, but he didn't say anything. He lowered his head again. I'm Phillip Pace, and I'm here to apologize to the Casady family. Please forgive me. Helen snapped out of her shock and hurried over to Phillip to help him up.
Mr. Pace, please get up.
But when she held Phillip's arm, he didn't budge an inch. I'll continue to kneel until you forgive me. Helen had been the head of the Casady family for many years, and she'd experienced many things in her life. It didn't take long for her to grasp the situation. Phillip had an arrogant personality, and he would never humiliate himself by kneeling down and begging for forgiveness. There could only be one explanation. Someone powerful was behind this. Whoever it was had used their influence to force Phillip to come today.
Mr. Pace, please get up. We forgive you.
Thank you, Miss Helen, Phillip exclaimed. He was relieved that he had finally completed the task that Stephen had given him. He staggered to his feet, but his knees went weak when he spotted Stephen sitting at the table. Uncle Phillip, what's wrong with you? Joe demanded. He had almost been successful in getting Stephen kicked out of the Casady family, but Phillip's arrival had ruined everything. Not to mention, Phillip had even apologized and asked for forgiveness. Their reputation was at stake because of him. However, one glare from Phillip was enough to shut Joe up. Be quiet. I'll deal with you when we get back. Phillip wasted no time and turned Joe's wheelchair around. After they left, everyone was as stiff as a statue. They exchanged glances and whispered amongst themselves. What did I just witness? Was I dreaming? Just a second ago, we were all worried that the Business Alliance would wipe out our family, but all of a sudden, their president showed up and begged us to forgive him. Was everything that Stephen said just now true? Helen turned to Stephen.
What's going on here? Explain yourself.
I've already said everything that needed to be said. Stephen leaned over to Kim and whispered, I have something to do, so I'll go home first. Everyone watched him leave the house in large strides.
Stephen really was telling the truth, Amy said.
Kim's heart clenched. She had jumped to conclusions and yelled at him when he hadn't done anything wrong. It was like she never believed in him. I know, Amy. I'll have a talk with him later. After Kim and Amy left, Rebecca took Helen's hand.
Grandma, I've done it! I've finally succeeded!
Upon hearing this, everyone looked at Rebecca with a puzzled expression. Helen scolded her.
Rebecca, we just overcame a crisis. What's there to be excited about? And what exactly did you achieve?
Can't you see it? This is a blessing in disguise. The owner of Global Investment came to my rescue. Phillip came because of him.
Harry touched Rebecca's forehead with his hand. Rebecca, are you sick? Did you lose your mind from stress? What nonsense are you saying? Rebecca slapped Harry's hand away.
It's not nonsense. Listen, Kim admitted that she didn't contact the owner of Global Investment. It was Stephen who told us that Phillip would come and apologize to us.
While Helen and Harry were trying to make sense of Rebecca's logic, she took their silence as invitation to continue.
The only explanation is that Stephen used his connections with the owner of Global Investment to get Phillip to come today. The owner of Global Investment is the one who made this happen. He's helping me in secret. Don't forget, Stephen himself said that he was a fan. I wouldn't be surprised if he found some way to contact him.
Harry was only slightly convinced. This is just you guessing. How confident are you?
100%. Let's wait and see. Since the owner of Global Investments has made his move, it won't be long until he shows himself.
When Kim and Amy went home, they found Stephen preparing lunch in the kitchen. Amy glanced at him briefly before going back to her room. Kim hesitated before calling out to him. Stephen, do you have some time? Can you come to my room? I have something to talk to you about. Sure. Stephen took off his apron and followed Kim into her room. They had been married for 3 years, but this was the first time Kim had let him into her room. They both took a seat on the bed. What's wrong? Stephen asked in confusion. Kim lowered her head. About what happened just now. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have suspected you before getting to the bottom of things. Stephen smiled warmly. That's okay. I understand where you were coming from. Can you tell me why Phillip suddenly came to apologize? He even kneeled and didn't care if he humiliated himself. I can tell you, but not now. When the time comes, I'll tell you everything about myself. For now, all I can say is that Phillip came today because of an influential person. He had no choice but to apologize in person. Anyway, I should finish cooking. Mom will be mad if lunch isn't ready when she comes back. Kim felt conflicted as she watched Stephen leave the room. Was this influential person her patron? She had some doubts, but could Stephen really be his fan? But if that were true, where did that leave her? What about their marriage? Did Stephen marry her because of her patron? Did he have any feelings for her at all? Kim felt a headache coming on as she flopped on the bed. Forget it. There was no point in thinking about this. After resolving the issue with Business Alliance, the day of Kim's class reunion was fast approaching. A few days before, Kim asked Stephen if he wanted to go to the mall with her. The reunion was coming up, and Caitlin wanted to take her out shopping. Stephen agreed, and 1 hour later, they arrived at the mall. Caitlin wasn't too happy when she saw them together. Kim, why did you bring him here? He's a waste of space, she whispered. Stop that. He's my husband. Don't talk about him like that. Caitlin's eyes widened. Wait, did you fall in love with him? No, right? Tell me I'm wrong. Caitlin, if you don't stop, I'm leaving, Kim warned. All right, calm down. If you don't want to tell me, that's fine. Just make sure your husband doesn't get in the way. Let's go inside. When Caitlin pulled Kim into the mall, they were greeted by a lively atmosphere and a bustling crowd. Caitlin looked around in amazement. There's a lot of people here today. Is there some kind of event going on? Let's go take a look, Kim said excitedly. It had been a long time since she attended a fun event. Stephen kept his gaze on Kim as he followed along. They pushed through the crowd to get a better view. There was a small stage at the center with a sign that read Masked Singer Competition. This was a popular show on TV where the participants wore masks during their performances, and they would only reveal their faces after the scores were finalized. This show was famous for its attractive participants. "I can't believe it!" Caitlin exclaimed. "It's the Masked Singer competition. I love this show. I watch every episode as soon as it's released." "I doubt you watch it for their singing. You watch it for the handsome men, am I right?" Kim teased. "Look who's talking. When we were in college, didn't you say that your type of man was one who was good at singing? You told me that when your future boyfriend proposed, he would have to sing you a love song, or else you wouldn't marry him." Kim's face reddened when Caitlin revealed her embarrassing past. "That was a long time ago. Why are you bringing that up now?" Although Kim couldn't help but feel a little disappointed that her dream from her youth had never come true. "This is why everyone thinks you got the short end of the stick when you married Steven. Forget about love songs. I'm pretty sure he's never given you a single present." Kim's disappointment grew. It was true that during these past 3 years, Steven had never given her a gift. And not too long ago, he had promised to give her a present on their anniversary. But when the time came, he had disappeared for an entire day. "Stop talking. Just listen to the song," she said with a sigh. Steven noticed the disappointed look on Kim's face. So her type of man was one who would sing her romantic songs. While Kim and Caitlin were focused on the stage, Steven took the opportunity to squeeze out of the crowd and head to the studio behind the stage. Not long after, the host on stage made an announcement. "Everyone, just now, someone came backstage and said that his wife really liked love songs, but he never had a chance to sing for her. He wanted to make up for his shortcomings and show her that he loves her. He'll be singing the popular song, 'The Girl Who Spoke to Me.' Please give him a round of applause." The host's announcement reminded Kim of her conversation with Caitlin just now. She glanced at Steven, only to find that he had disappeared. Kim's heart skipped a beat. Was the host referring to Steven? A man wearing a mask walked on stage. Even though half of his face was covered, everyone could tell that he was handsome. Caitlin's eyes sparkled. "He's so good-looking, don't you think so?" Kim didn't say anything. The man on stage looked strangely familiar. The stage went dark for a second before a single light lit up above the man, putting him in the spotlight. The music sounded, and the man started singing. "The heart is empty, the sky is vast, and the clouds are heavy. I hate this feeling of loneliness, but I don't know how to make it go away." The man's voice was deep and magnetic. The audience was immersed in his singing. They felt like he was a lover, whispering into their ear and expressing his feelings for them. The man continued to sing with deep emotion. "She told me that she was protecting her dream. She said that there weren't too many people like her in this world, but she gradually forgot about me." Each word captivated the audience and melted their hearts. They felt like they were listening to a story of a man returning to his youth and reminiscing about his unforgettable first love. Kim's gaze was fixed on the stage. She wasn't sure if she was just imagining things, but the man seemed to be looking in her direction. When the song ended, the audience erupted into cheers and applause. After the man stepped off the stage, the audience was still mesmerized by his singing. He sang so well. He was 100 times better than a professional singer. Even though he was wearing a mask, I have a feeling that he's a handsome guy. What should I do? I want to hear him sing another song. I recorded a video and posted it online. Kim and Caitlin stayed for a bit longer before pushing their way out of the crowd. After hearing "The Girl Who Spoke to Me," they didn't think any other song could impress them and draw them in. Kim was filled with expectation when Steven came back. "Where did you go?"
"I had a stomachache, so I went to the bathroom. What's wrong?" Steven asked. Kim was disappointed. It seemed like she had gotten her hopes up for nothing. "All right, never mind." Caitlin was watching a video on her phone of the man who had just performed on stage. "Kim, look, he's so handsome. I think I fell in love. What should I do?" "What do you mean you fell in love? You don't know what he looks like, and you don't know what kind of person he is. What if he turns out to be some bad guy?" With such a beautiful voice and attractive build, he has to be handsome, Caitlin said. She paused the video and uploaded it to her social media page, along with the caption, "Hive mind, I want all the information you can find on this mystery man." Stephen felt a little awkward. Why had his singing impressed his wife's friend, but not his wife? After posting the video, Caitlin's phone rang. She chatted briefly before hanging up. That was Joe. He said he's nearby and wants to treat us to a meal. But he was injured the last time I saw him. Is he well enough to go around outside? I don't know. Wait, look over there. Caitlin pointed at the entrance. He's here at the mall. Joe walked up to them. Are you already recovered? Kim asked in surprise. Of course. Those wounds were nothing I couldn't handle, Joe said smugly. Stephen crossed his arms. Did you have fun pretending? If Joe had really been injured to the point where he would have shown up at Helen's house in a wheelchair and wrapped in bandages, he would have needed more than a few days to recover. Since Joe appeared to have fully recovered in such a short time, his injuries were most likely superficial. He probably found out that those 4 thugs were Christina's underlings, and he was afraid that they would come after him, so he pretended like he was severely injured on purpose. Joe was embarrassed when he realized that Stephen saw through him. I don't know what you're talking about. Caitlin interjected impatiently. Stop wasting time. Joe, where are you planning on taking us? Why don't we go to the restaurant in this mall instead of going out? Joe suggested. That's a great idea, Caitlin said. I heard it's one of the best high-end restaurants in Los Angeles. Joe shrugged. It's not that expensive. I usually come here to have dinner with my friends. He glanced at Stephen. Well, I suppose for some people, they might not have ever had a chance to come here. Caitlin intervened because she was afraid that a fight would break out. Let's get going already. Stephen didn't follow them when they went upstairs. He frowned as he looked at his watch. Why isn't Keisha here yet? In the next second, Keisha ran into the mall. Mr. Adams, I'm so sorry for being late. It's fine. Did you bring what I asked for? Keisha held out a box. It's right here. I went to all the jewelers in the city to find this necklace. It was $1,200,000. Good work. Stephen took the box and went upstairs. Kim, Caitlin, and Joe had already gotten a table at the restaurant. Kim was worried when she realized that Stephen hadn't come with them. Where did Stephen go? Maybe he saw how fancy the restaurant was and didn't have the courage to come in, Caitlin said. Joe laughed. I don't think so. He had the guts to come to my uncle's company. Why would he be scared because of a restaurant? That's true. He has no sense of shame. Kim couldn't be bothered to put a stop to their criticisms. She stood up to leave. I'm going to look for him. Caitlin grabbed Kim's arm and sat her back down. Do you think he's 3 years old? If he wants to leave, then let him leave. Let's look at the menu and enjoy our food. Joe took out a box and held it out to Kim. Our class reunion is coming up. I noticed you didn't wear much jewelry, so I had someone bring back this necklace from abroad last night. I hope you like it. This necklace cost more than $200,000. Joe had put a lot of effort into getting it, and he was confident in his gift. However, Kim refused it. No, it's okay. I already have a necklace. Joe hurriedly opened the box. You haven't seen it yet. Look, it's beautiful. I spent more than $200,000 to convey my feelings for you. Caitlin took the box and put it in front of Kim. Joe spent all that money just to buy you this necklace. Just accept it. It wasn't that expensive, Joe said. This was the perfect time to confess. Kim, I'm willing to buy anything for you because I love you. Just then, Stephen came into the restaurant. Your gift is worthless. He took the box and threw it under the table. What are you doing? Caitlin demanded. Do you know how much that necklace cost? Over $200,000. You would never be able to save up that much money. Pick it up and apologize to Joe. How is $200,000 considered expensive? Do you know how much the Moon of the Nile is worth? $2 billion, Stephen retorted. Caitlin was at a loss for words. Joe glared at him. No matter how expensive the Moon of the Nile is, it wasn't a gift from you. The owner of Global Investment gave it to Kim. But what about you? Did you prepare a gift for her? Of course I did. Stephen knew that Kim might hesitate to wear anything too precious, so he had asked Keisha to find this necklace. Caitlin looked up at Stephen with a warning in her eyes. If you really have a gift for Kim, it better not be something you bought on the streets. I won't let it go if you embarrass her. Joe stood up. Let's make a bet. If your gift is worth more than mine, I'll get down on all fours and... If not, then it'll be you on the floor. What do you say? No matter what, he would make Stephen lose all of his dignity in front of Kim today. Kim was worried that Stephen would lose the bet and be forced to embarrass himself. He didn't have a stable job, and she didn't have enough money in her bank to help him, so how could he have prepared a gift worth more than $200,000? Stephen, stop messing around. I don't need presents. Caitlin was also concerned. Even though she didn't have a good impression of Stephen, she didn't want him to humiliate himself, because that would be the same as embarrassing Kim. Hey, don't be rash. Kim's reputation is on the line. Despite Kim's warnings, Stephen agreed to the bet and rendered all of them speechless. It's a deal. Kim glared at Stephen. She was so frustrated that she didn't know what to say. Was he not aware of his own financial status? Caitlin sighed as she grabbed her and Kim's handbags. Let's leave. If you stay, everyone will be mocking you tomorrow. Joe continued to provoke him. It seems like I've overestimated your intelligence. It's been a long time since I've heard a... Well, what are you waiting for? Show us your gift. Stephen took out the box that Keisha had given him and gave it to Kim. I told you before that I wouldn't embarrass you. Kim, this is my gift to you. Stephen, you have to think things over before agreeing, Kim chided. She didn't think he was capable of buying her valuable gifts. As for the bet, maybe she could just drag Stephen out of the restaurant with her. Joe urged Kim to open the box. See what's inside. I'm really curious as to why he's so confident. Commotion in the restaurant attracted the attention of the other customers. They watched in anticipation as Kim reluctantly opened the box. Everyone was in disbelief the moment the necklace came into view. That's Burgess's necklace. It was revealed to the public a few days ago. I didn't think I would get the chance to see it for myself. I'm so glad I decided to dine here today. If I'm not wrong, this necklace is worth at least $1,200,000. That lady is so lucky. Joe refused to believe that Stephen had the means to purchase a necklace worth over $1 million. I won't be fooled. You hired someone to forge a fake necklace, didn't you? If it's real, you should have an invoice and an anti-counterfeit certificate. Take them out. If you really have them, I'll admit defeat. Stephen raised his eyebrows. I don't have that. He had been in such a rush when Keisha gave him the box that he had forgotten to ask for them. Joe smirked. Stephen, you're really stupid. You say it's real, but you don't have an invoice? Who would believe that? Since you lost the bet, get on the floor already. Caitlin let out a sigh. Kim, this husband of yours is such a disappointment. I can't believe he actually gave you a fake. Kim didn't say anything. She was staring at the necklace in the box. This was her first gift from Stephen. As long as it's a gift from him, I like it, Kim said. Just as she was about to put it on, one of the customers at another table hurried over. Wait, I've been working in the jewelry industry for decades. Can you let me see the necklace? Maybe I can help you determine if it's real or fake. Joe recognized him. Mr. Finley, long time no see. You're a famous jewelry appraiser in the city, so I trust your judgment. Kim hesitated and looked at Stephen. When he nodded, she gave the necklace to Mr. Finley. Mr. Finley took out a small device and shone a beam of light on the necklace. He carefully scrutinized the jewels. After some time, he put away his tools and took a deep breath. Mr. Finley, it looks like you have an answer. Tell us, is it real or is it fake? Joe asked. This necklace is real, Mr. Finley announced. Joe's smile slipped. What? Mr. Finley, are your eyes going bad because you're getting up there in age? Mr. Finley ignored Joe and took out a small microscope to show the necklace to the onlookers. I'm not wrong. All of you can take a look. The initials FG are engraved on the necklace. It's well hidden, and not just anyone can accomplish this. Everyone was amazed when they confirmed Mr. Finley's words with their own eyes. It's really there. Only experts in this field would be able to find it. I didn't think that young man would really have a gift worth more than $1 million. He's not even wearing anything special. Caitlin's mouth dropped open in shock. How did you buy something this expensive? On the other hand, Kim was overwhelmed with joy. Stephen turned to Joe. The winner is clear. Isn't it about time you own up to your own words? Should I ask the waiter for a glass of water before you... Joe clenched his fists. How could he have lost to Stephen this many times in a row? I'm warning you now, Stephen. Don't take things too far. Are you going to pretend like the bet didn't exist? Who's pretending? You're the one who cheated. Someone like you couldn't have possibly had more than $1 million to buy a gift. It had to have been Kim who gave you the money. Asking your wife to pay for her own gift. Do you not have any shame? No matter how much Caitlin thought about it, the only explanation for Stephen's gift was that it was Kim's money. Kim, did you really give Stephen over $1 million? No, I didn't, Kim said firmly. Joe refused to admit he'd lost. I don't care. In any case, you cheated, so I didn't lose. Joe turned around to leave. Wait, you forgot to take your gift with you. Stephen picked up the box under the table and flung it at him. When the box hit Joe's back, he tripped, and he fell on the floor in the middle of the restaurant with everyone watching. When they returned home, Stephen was happy to see Kim going straight to her room to put on the necklace. Do you like it? Kim nodded shyly. I do. As she looked in the mirror and examined the necklace, she asked, Where did you get the money? Kim worried Stephen had done something illegal. Stephen smiled. Don't worry, the money's clean. Trust me. Kim looked into his eyes. He didn't seem to be lying. I believe you. In the evening, Stephen left the house and drove to the store where he had purchased the $2 wine. When Stephen arrived, he saw the owner, Matthew Lozano, closing the door. A heavy backpack was on his back. It seemed like he was planning to go on a long journey. It's still early. Are you closing already? Matthew turned around. He was surprised to see Stephen. Oh, it's you. There's not much business today, so I was planning on going home early. Stephen sat on the doorstep of the store. To me, it looks like you're running off somewhere. What do you mean? Do you know why I visit your store even though my house is far away? It's because you give off a murderous aura. No, it would be more accurate to call it the smell of blood. Even so, you managed to open up a small store and lead an ordinary life. I'm impressed, and I'm also very curious. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm leaving, so what do you want? Matthew said as he walked past Stephen. If my guess is right, someone's after you. That's why you're leaving. Matthew stopped in his tracks. How much do you know? Nothing much, but I have a feeling that you're holding a grudge. I'm no stranger to grudges, so in a sense, that puts us in the same boat. People like us aren't destined for an easy life. Escaping isn't going to solve the problem. If anything happens in the future, you can look for me at the villa at the highest point in the city. Stephen stood up and dusted his clothes. I'm leaving. Remember what I told you. He waved and walked back to his car. Matthew chuckled as Stephen drove away. He really is an interesting man. By the time Stephen went home, it was late. Kim was probably already sleeping. After washing up, he went back to his room and logged on to A Live. He wondered how Amy was doing. He hadn't logged in ever since she won the competition. The instant Stephen logged in, a message flashed on his screen. It was from Amy. Stefan, you're finally online. I've been waiting for you. Stephen typed a reply. He tried to keep his tone cold so that she wouldn't misunderstand and think that he was interested in her. I was bored, so I decided to log in. Really? I have a feeling that you're trying to run away from me. You obviously like me too. I even failed my exams because I couldn't stop thinking about you. At the end of the message was a crying emoji. Stephen swallowed anxiously. When did he deliberately avoid her? Why was her brain like this? If Kim or Natalie ever found out that Amy was neglecting her studies because of her brother-in-law, that would be the end of him. Mimi, how can I make you believe that I really don't like you? How am I supposed to believe that? If you really didn't like me, why did you spend so much money to help me? It just doesn't make sense unless you're stupid and have way too much money. A fool. with a lot of money. An idea popped into Steven's head. I really do have a lot of money, he replied. Then he dialed Jack's number. Put another $1 billion into my A-Live account. Understood? I'll take care of it right away, Jack said. He could already imagine the chaos that was about to ensue on A-Live because of Steven. Nicole Travis was a student at Amy's university. She heard that Amy had recently made a lot of money from streaming, so she bought a secondhand computer to try her hand at streaming online. Nicole registered an account with the nickname Nikki and set up her stream. But after a few days, her number of followers was still at 0, and she hadn't received a single gift. Nicole sighed. If she were as pretty as Amy, maybe someone like Stefan Asher would have joined her streams and supported her too. Just when Nicole was about to give up on A-Live, someone joined her stream. She sat up with the start. Was she hallucinating? The nickname of the person who just joined was Stefan Asher. Then, something even more unbelievable happened. A flashy system notification appeared on every single stream. Stefan Asher has sent Nikki 100 warships. Nicole was so shocked that she almost fell off of her chair. 100 ships was worth 100 million. Was this the beginning of her career as an online streamer? Nicole was excited and nervous at the same time as she debated how to greet her viewers. Thousands of viewers rushed to Nicole's stream, and before long, the number of viewers reached 5 million. They all wanted to see what kind of person a wealthy man like Stefan had supported. The moment they joined the stream, they were shocked to see a young lady making strange faces at the camera. Everyone was speechless. Who knew the only person on A-Live with the label of Emperor would actually have such bizarre tastes? Amy sent an angry message to Steven. What are you doing? Are you trying to make me mad on purpose? She didn't receive a reply. Another system announcement appeared and caused an uproar. Stefan was giving 100 million to another streamer. The viewers on Nicole's stream immediately left and joined another. Nicole was frustrated when her number of viewers dropped to the single digits, but it didn't take long for her mood to improve. Since Stefan had given her 100 million, she should cash out the money right away. At this time, the viewers were confused when they were greeted by an empty room on their screen. The streamer that Steven had supported had left temporarily. Everyone wondered who this lucky streamer was. Suddenly, an unkempt and half-asleep middle-aged man shuffled out of the bathroom and sat in front of the camera. When the man looked at the screen, he was instantly wide awake. He had left his stream running overnight, and when he returned after going to bed, a 100 million gift was on his screen. The man and the viewers wondered if Stefan had supported the wrong streamer by mistake. Before anyone could guess what was going through Stefan's mind, another system announcement appeared. This time, Stefan had given a streamer who live broadcasted the daily life of their cat 100 million. Amy also joined the stream. She was dumbfounded when she saw a cat on her screen. She hurriedly sent Stefan another message. Why are you doing this? No matter how much money you have, you can't just throw it away like it's worth nothing. Steven sent her a reply. Shh, I've only just begun. He closed out his chat room with Amy and continued to join random streams to give the streamer 100 million. The system announcements appeared one after another. After Steven gave out a total of 1 billion, he joined Mimi's stream. Amy decided not to send a private message and directly commented in the chat, "Enough of your craziness." To the streamers and the viewers on A-Live, it seemed like all of this was a result of a lover's quarrel between Stefan and Mimi. Stefan was throwing away his money to vent his anger. Everyone hoped that they would argue more often. Stefan sent a message into the chat. I'm not crazy. I'm just proving to you that what I said was true. Amy was so angry that her hands were shaking as she typed up a response. Before she could send it, another message from Stefan popped up. Oh, I almost forgot. I still have some money left in my account. The viewers commented that during the competition, Stefan had said the same thing. But right after, he had gifted Mimi 100 million. They told him to work on his acting skills. A line of text appeared on the screen. Stefan Asher has gifted Mimi 10 hearts. Amy and the viewers were stunned. Each heart was worth $1. 10 hearts was equivalent to $10. One last message from Stefan appeared in the chat. I'm done with A Live. I won't be logging in again. Goodbye. Amy slammed the laptop shut and punched her pillow to vent her frustrations. Her innocent first love had come to an end. After Steven sent Amy 10 hearts, he left her stream. He logged out and deleted Aquaria Live app from his phone. Steven heaved a sigh of relief. He had resolved a huge issue with his sister-in-law before it could get any worse. In the blink of an eye, Monday arrived. Today was the class reunion. Caitlin dropped by Kim's house in the morning. Are you awake? We have to get ready. Kim was half asleep as she stared blankly at Caitlin. What's the hurry? It's still early. The reunion's at 6 p.m. What do you mean it's early? Think about it. You have to do your hair, put on makeup, choose accessories. There's so much you have to do. Kim shook her head. There's no need to dress up. Listen, you may have been born pretty, but I need to dress up, okay? Can't you come with me? Kim had no choice but to give in. All right, fine, let's go. She looked back at Steven, who was wiping the table. What about Steven? Forget about him, Caitlin said. He'll only get in the way if he follows us. Steven gave them a shrug. I have some business to attend to in the afternoon. You guys go ahead. Kim, send me the address and room number later. I promise I'll be on time. Kim nodded as Caitlin led her to the door. At least your husband's somewhat sensible. After Kim and Caitlin left, Steven took out his phone and called Jack. Mr. Adams, we've found Matthew Lozano, but the situation isn't good. If you have time, it'd be better if you came over. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Steven hung up and rushed out of the house. He had been worried after he saw Matthew last night, so he had sent Jack to protect him. Unfortunately, they were one step too late. Matthew was a global investment. He was lying on the couch in the office. How's his condition? Steven asked. He hadn't made many friends over the past 3 years, and Matthew was one of them. They hadn't talked much, but they had a mutual understanding of each other. It's a miracle that he's alive. If he were a normal person, he wouldn't have survived, Jack said. Steven went over to the couch. I know you can hear me. You have 2 choices. 1, you. 2, live and take your revenge. Matthew struggled to speak. I'm going to live, and I'm going to take my revenge. All right. Steven turned to Jack. Have some people carry him, and follow me. Mr. Adams, where are we going? Jack asked. With Matthew's current injuries, each bump along the road would only make it worse. If this went on, he might before they even reached their destination. To a strange man's house. It's not far. Don't worry, as long as he's alive, that will have a way to revive him. Half an hour later, they arrived at a courtyard located on the outskirts of the city. When they were about to go in, a man came out and intercepted them. Who are you looking for? Steven held his hands behind his back and looked at him coldly. Tell Colin to come out and see me. How dare you call Mr. Hester's name so casually? The man demanded. When he met Steven's gaze, he couldn't help but shiver. He stammered as he spoke. Who do you think you are? Do you have an appointment? Steven couldn't be bothered with pointless conversation. Just as he was about to walk past the man stepped in front of him. Hey, not just anyone can go inside, the man exclaimed helplessly. Before he could say anything more, a familiar face came up behind them. It was Joe. What's all this noise about? Aren't you aware that Mr. Hester's busy right now? I don't know. I told them not to mess around, but they wouldn't listen. When Joe's gaze fell on Steven and the others, he sighed in annoyance. Why is it you again? Leave. Not just anyone can meet with Mr. Hester. And who are you supposed to be, giving orders like you own the place? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Tell Colin to come out, Steven said. I'm Mr. Hester's student, and I have a right to tell you to leave. Joe had been Colin's student ever since he was young. He was talented, and all the other students looked up to him. Steven took a step forward and looked him in the eye. Is that so? Without waiting for Joe's response, Steven looked past him and called out, Colin, hurry up and come out. An elderly man's voice rang out from the back of the house. Who is it? Why are you being so loud? Can't an old man sleep in peace around here? Joe hurried over and supported Colin. He didn't hesitate to add fuel to the fire. Mr. Hester, there's someone here who said you'll in front of him. He even said your medical skills are mediocre. It's not a big deal, Colin said. They're just trying to provoke me. It happens several times a year. We can't just get them out. Joe called out to Stephen. Did you hear that? You're the useless son-in-law of the Casady family. What right do you have to come here? Get lost. Colin tensed. Wait, who did you say he was? He's the son-in-law of the Casady family, Stephen Adams. Such like him should be thrown out immediately. Colin cursed under his breath. What did you say? Get out of here! Joe looked at Stephen in disdain. Did you hear that? Mr. Hester told you to get out. Colin gritted his teeth. You! I'm talking to you! He pushed Joe away and rushed to get on his in front of Stephen. Mr. Adams, I apologize for my student's rudeness. Colin was a genius in the medical field. Because of his talent, he was arrogant and looked down on everyone, with the exception of Stephen. After all, who would dare look down on the Grand Palace Master? Stephen chuckled. It's only been half a year since the last time I saw you. You've become more pretentious, huh? I'm very sorry, Mr. Adams. Joe couldn't believe his eyes. How could anyone make his teacher cower in fear like this? Mr. Hester, have you gone crazy? When Colin shot him a glare, he swallowed his words. Stephen gestured to Matthew, who was being carried out by one of his people. No matter what it takes, you have to save him. Understood. Stephen turned and left without sparing a glance at Joe. Joe recovered from his shock and ran over to help Colin stand up. Why are you so polite with him? Isn't he just a... Joe, you can't judge people by their appearances. You have to look beneath the exterior. Only then will you understand. Joe frowned as he gave it some thought. Colin had in front of Stephen, which meant that Stephen was either wealthy or had influential connections. He found it hard to believe that Stephen was rich, so it had to be the latter. It seemed like that Stephen had found someone powerful to have his back. He hadn't changed at all. Let's see who'll be there to help you at the class reunion, Joe thought. By the time Stephen finished his work, it was already 5 p.m. Kim sent him a text. Here's the address to the hotel. My class reunion is on the 18th floor. We're in room 318. Stephen was surprised when he searched up the address. This was a 5-star hotel restaurant in Los Angeles. Each meal was at least in the 5 digits. Most importantly, if he was remembering correctly, this hotel was one of his businesses. It seemed like Joe had put in a lot of effort. In that case, he would bleed Joe's money dry. Half an hour later, Stephen arrived at the hotel's private room. Kim stood up and greeted him as soon as he went inside. Stephen, come sit next to me. In an instant, all eyes were on him. Who is that? Why would he sit beside her? Don't you know? He's the son-in-law of the Casady family. Their marriage made the news 3 years ago. That's him. If they have kids, will they take on Kim's last name instead of his? Stephen ignored their gossip. He took a sip of water as he scanned the room. There were 20 people, and Joe wasn't here yet. Caitlin leaned over to Kim and whispered, I told you it would be a bad idea to bring him here. Look, everyone's laughing at him, but he's acting like he can't hear them. The door opened once more, and Joe strolled in. He was wearing a suit. Sorry for being late. I was preparing a lecture for Harvard University. I'm really busy these days. Joe took a seat at the head of the table. There's a face I don't recognize. Kim, why don't you introduce us to the person sitting next to you? Joe already knew the answer, but putting Stephen down would be a great start to the class reunion. Kim knew that Joe was asking her to introduce Stephen on purpose. Joe wanted to make things difficult for him. You already know that he's my... Before she could finish, Stephen interrupted her. Weren't you all talking about me just now? I'm a useless son-in-law. The atmosphere turned awkward. No one expected Stephen to be this direct and shameless. Joe quickly spoke up to lighten the mood. Everyone, let's eat. There's no need to waste your time with irrelevant people.
Everyone praised Joe. It's all thanks to you that we're able to have our class reunion at a luxurious hotel like this. Yeah, he's the most successful person here. He's a professor before the age of 30, and I also heard that he's Colin Hester's student. I'm so envious of his future wife. Whoever marries him will be blessed with good fortune. While Joe was enjoying himself with all the compliments, the sound of chewing distracted him. He looked at Stephen, who was eating like he had been starved for days. As he shoved food into his mouth, he also put some food onto Kim's plate. Try this, it's delicious, Stephen said as he licked his lips. Kim covered her mouth with her hand to stifle a laugh. She knew that he was doing this on purpose to annoy Joe. Caitlin couldn't bear to watch this any longer. Stephen, pay attention to your image, she whispered. But didn't we gather today to have a meal? That's exactly what I'm doing. No wonder everyone calls him useless. How uncultured. He doesn't know the first thing about etiquette. I feel bad for Kim. She has someone like him as her husband. If it weren't for Joe, you wouldn't even be here right now. Joe laughed. All right, let's not make things difficult for Stephen. After all, he's never seen such luxurious dishes in his life. It's only natural that he couldn't resist the urge to dig in. Joe gave Stephen a scornful look. With this kind of image, you still want to fight over Kim with me? Dream on, he thought. Everyone continued to criticize Stephen. As expected of Joe, he has a big heart. That's right, he's even standing up for this. If I were him, I wouldn't have had the courage to show my face today. What an embarrassment. Kim had already predicted that this would happen. That was why she was hesitant to bring Stephen here. That's enough. If you keep this up, we'll be leaving. Kim, don't be angry, Joe said. We're just joking with him. Stephen, you wouldn't be so petty as to get mad, right? Stephen looked up from his plate. Your two-faced personality is ruining my appetite. Joe frowned. What did you say? I said your two-faced personality is ruining my appetite. But of course, I'm only joking. You won't be petty and get mad at me, right? Kim couldn't help but laugh out loud. Even Caitlin was having a hard time holding back her laughter. Joe was furious. I've got to hand it to you, Stephen. You're eloquent with your words. Since you seem proud of yourself, why don't you take this chance and redeem your image? You don't want to be called a freeloader at Kim's house forever, right? It's not like I care about this small amount of money, but I just want to give you an opportunity to prove yourself. Stephen pretended like he didn't understand. So what you mean is, no matter how many dishes we order and how much we eat, you'll pay half of the bill at the end and I'll pay the other half? Sounds good. Can I order the dishes? You're quick on the uptake. Of course you can order. Pick whatever you want. Joe guessed that Stephen wanted to order because he was afraid that the bill would be too high. Either way, this worked out in Joe's favor. If Stephen only ordered the cheapest items on the menu, then everyone would think that he didn't want to spend that much money. If he ordered a decent amount, it still wouldn't matter, because he wouldn't have the money to pay for it. Okay, I'll start ordering, Stephen said. He waved the waiter over and looked at the menu. Joe smiled as he watched him order, but 5 minutes later, his smile faltered. Stephen hadn't finished ordering. So far, he had ordered the most expensive dishes on the menu. The cheapest dish he chose was $8,000. A few minutes later, Stephen finally stopped, but it seemed like he was taking a break after taking so long and was planning to continue soon. Joe cut in before he could order more. Wait, that's enough. We shouldn't waste food. Well, if you say so. Stephen looked at the waiter. How many dishes did I order just now? 108 dishes. Your total will be 2.5 million, the waiter replied. Joe swallowed nervously. If they split 2.5 million, he would have to pay at least 1.25 million. It was a lot of money even for him, but he decided to leave it alone. He wanted to see how Stephen would pay for it. Everyone at the table looked at each other. Joe, isn't this too much? I'm not sure if we can finish it all. Who cares? It's worth 2.5 million. I wouldn't be able to earn this amount of money even if I worked for the rest of my life.
Joe really is successful. Not too many people in the city are on his level. The waiter took back the menu. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll notify the kitchen of your order right away. Before the waiter could leave, Stephen called out to him. Hold on, I'm not done yet. Give me 3 servings of the dishes I just ordered. Everyone was stunned. 3 servings of each dish? 1 serving was already 2.5 million. 3 servings would be 7.5 million. That was enough money to buy 2 of the most luxurious mansions in Los Angeles. Joe was secretly panicking. His current savings were only around 5 million. If he forked over 3.75 million all at once, wouldn't he go bankrupt soon? Not to mention, how was Stephen going to pay for his half of the bill? Was he out of his mind? Stephen, what's wrong with you? Caitlin demanded. Can you even finish all these dishes? Kim agreed with her. She's right. I didn't bring that much money with me today. If you order this much, I'll have to spend several million. It's fine. We're splitting the bill anyway. I'll pay my half with my card. Stephen looked at Joe. Besides, even if Joe were to pay for everything, he wouldn't care about this small amount of money. Am I right? Joe forced a smile. Of course. If you really don't have the money. Great. Stephen turned to the waiter again. How much do you charge for your best wine? Our most expensive wine was specially delivered to our hotel from Portugal. 1 bottle is worth 1.2 million. The waiter answered excitedly. If this group were to order 1 or 2 bottles, his performance would skyrocket. Give me 20 bottles, Stephen said lightly. Everyone stared at him in disbelief. Joe's face paled. 20 bottles? He wasn't about to go bankrupt for a meal. Wait, after this, we're still going to the bar and karaoke. Let's not go overboard. Stephen pretended to be troubled. This won't do. How can we have good food without good wine? This has been the standard ever since ancient times. How about we compromise? Let's order 2 bottles instead of 20. Joe clenched his fists. After this meal, he would have to spend 4.95 million. But Stephen wouldn't be able to act this crazy once it was time to settle the bill. Even if he had to empty his bank, at least he would have the pleasure of witnessing Stephen destroy his own reputation. All right, just 2 bottles. Sometime later, the dishes were ready. The waiters had to prepare 2 tables to accommodate 3 servings of dishes. The aroma was enough to make their mouths water. Everyone was grateful to Joe. Thanks, Joe. Now I can brag to my friends that I've eaten a meal worth several $1 million before. He's a hero for giving us this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Joe was in a daze as he thought about his bank account. No need to be polite. Eat your fill, he said through clenched teeth. Kim looked at the delicacies on the table, but she didn't have an appetite. Stephen, how are you going to pay for all of this? When there's a chance, you should leave. Joe will foot the bill. Stephen laughed. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Maybe I won't even need to pay. Caitlin narrowed her eyes. Keep dreaming. When the bill comes, you'll be crying on the floor. It wasn't long before the plates were emptied. Everyone was satisfied with the extravagant meal. Joe hesitated for a long time before calling the waiter over. He would be losing several million because of Stephen. The waiter was all smiles as he approached the table. May I ask who will be paying? Joe pointed at Stephen. Me and him. He'll pay half of it first, then it'll be me. I understand. How will you be paying? I'll use my credit card, Stephen said indifferently. He followed the waiter out of the room. Joe looked around the table and said, Let's go see how he'll pay. When they were downstairs, everyone crowded around Stephen like he was a celebrity. The manager of the hotel had already received news of Stephen's identity. He stood next to the front desk respectfully. Mr. Stephen shook his head, signaling for the manager not to reveal his identity. Stephen threw a glance over his shoulder. Hey, Joe, are you sure you don't want to pay first? You go first. I want to see just how rich you are. Joe couldn't wait for him to make a fool out of himself. Okay, Stephen said as he turned back to the manager. Could you please tell me how much half of the bill would be? The manager looked over the bill and did some brief calculations. The total is 9.9 million. Half of it would be 4.95 million. Everyone knew that their meal had been expensive, but hearing it in person was still a shocker. Kim took out her card and pushed it in Stephen's hand. Use this. I still have $600,000 on my card. Caitlin followed suit and took out her own card. Even though she looked down on Stephen, he was her best friend's husband. She couldn't just watch him lose face. I knew you'd cause trouble. You only know how to embarrass Kim. Take this. My card has over $1 million. Stephen gave Kim and Caitlin their cards back. It'll be fine. I told you before, right? Maybe I won't have to pay. He gave the manager a meaningful look. This is hilarious. What makes you think you won't have to pay? Do you think you're the owner of the hotel? If you can't pay, you'll be arrested. You're only capable of talking big. Joe smirked. Even though he had lost to Stephen several times before, their society placed more importance on one's wealth. He would be spending more than planned, but watching Stephen be humiliated would be worth it. Sir, hold on a minute, the manager exclaimed. I just checked, and you're our hotel's 880,000th customer. Regardless of what you ordered, it will all be free of charge.
Stephen was impressed by the manager's splendid acting. He pretended to be surprised.
Free of charge? It looks like I really can't predict the future. In other words, I don't have to pay anything for my half of the bill, right?
The manager nodded.
That's right. You're very lucky.
Everyone was dumbfounded. Half of the bill was $4.95 million, but Stephen wouldn't have to pay a single penny. This was unbelievable. Joe stepped forward.
No, I'm the one who will be paying first. I'm the lucky one, not him.
Everyone spoke up for Joe because they couldn't accept that someone like Stephen had managed to find a loophole to get out of paying his half of the bill. He's the one who invited all of us here today. Logically speaking, he should be the one paying first. We can all testify to that. We were just joking around when we said we should let Stephen go first. You might not know this, but the person in front of you is the useless son-in-law of the Casady family. But Joe is one of the youngest professors in the city. He's also the student of the famous doctor, Colin Hester. I'm sorry, but the hotel has its rules, the manager said, pretending like there was nothing he could do about it. I've been here this entire time, and I heard Mr. Holloway tell Mr. Adams to pay first. If it was a joke, I'm sorry, but I couldn't tell. The manager lowered his head in apology, but internally, he was thinking that this group of people were ridiculous. Who were they calling a useless son-in-law? What a load of nonsense. The person in front of them was the owner of this hotel. If he was considered useless, what would that make the rest of them? Mr. Adams, you're all set. Mr. Holloway, please come this way to pay. Joe was at a loss. What the heck was going on? He had risked almost all of his savings to humiliate Stephen. But in the end, Stephen would be walking away scot-free, whereas he would have to spend almost $5 million for this group of so-called classmates of his. What a joke!
No, I can't accept this.
You can refuse, but I'll have to call the police and blacklist you from the entire hotel industry in the city, the manager warned as he picked up his phone.
Wait, I'll give you my card.
Joe couldn't afford to get in trouble with the police. His reputation would be ruined. He took out a card and held it out with a shaky hand. The manager swiped the card and returned it to him. Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Oh yes, because the amount you spent today set a record, we've decided that in the future, whenever you're here, we'll give you an unlimited supply of peanuts. Joe was so angry that he almost threw the card on the floor. He had spent almost $5 million for free peanuts? Stephen stood to the side with Kim and Caitlin. How did you know you wouldn't have to pay? Kim asked. He shrugged.
Who knows? Maybe I'm actually a prophet in disguise.
You're so full of yourself, Caitlin said with a sigh, but she was secretly envious of his heaven-defying luck. One of Kim and Caitlin's university classmates came up to them. She was wearing heavy makeup and a revealing outfit.
Stephen, you're acting like you're all that, but if it weren't for Joe telling you to pay first, you wouldn't have had the chance to eat a free meal. If you really think you're a prophet, you should be thanking Joe for his kindness.
She was doing this to get Joe's attention. After all, he was a wealthy man who had spent almost $5 million to treat them. Stephen smiled.
You don't believe me?
Why would anyone with a brain believe you?
Fine, tell me where you work. I'll prove that I can predict the future.
The woman grinned as she held out her business card.
I'm Lauren, and I'm a secretary at this company. My salary is more than $20,000 a month. How's that? Are you scared?
Stephen glanced at the card.
I see.
He sent Jack a message before putting his phone back into his pocket.
I predict that in 3 minutes, your boss will call you and tell you that you've been fired.
Lauren laughed.
Are you serious? My boss is going to fire me? Let me tell you something. Even if my boss fires everyone at the company, he'll never fire me.
In addition to being the boss's secretary, Lauren was also his lover. He always praised her for her excellent skills at work. He would never fire her. Kim pulled Stephen back. Stop fooling around. It was already late into the evening. Why would Lauren's boss call just to fire her? Caitlin shook her head in disapproval. Only those who were incompetent relied on luck. Just then, Lauren's phone rang. It was her boss.
Didn't I tell you I'd be at my class reunion today? Couldn't you handle not talking to me for a couple hours?
What's there to handle? You're fired. This will take effect immediately. Stir up all the trouble you want, but don't even think about taking one step into the company again.
Lauren was in disbelief.
What did you just say? You have no conscience, she yelled into the phone. I help you with your work during and after working hours, but now you're firing me out of the blue? How am I supposed to pay off my credit card?
Lauren stormed out of the hotel to continue her conversation in a more secluded location. Everyone was shocked as they watched her leave. Stephen faced them with a smile.
Does anyone else want to test my luck?
Everyone fell silent. They wanted to talk back, but after seeing Lauren's miserable ending, no one dared to take the lead. Stephen, how did you do that? Kim asked.
I got lucky,
he said simply. Kim was disappointed that Stephen didn't want to tell her the truth, but she didn't question him further. Okay, if you say so. Caitlin was also curious, but since he didn't want to explain, she lost interest. Joe forced a smile. He would make sure to deal with Stephen later. Since we're done here, let's head to the bar. Joe had arranged several cars in advance. They were waiting in front of the hotel's entrance to pick them up. Everyone got into their respective cars. Soon, only Joe, Kim, Caitlin, and Stephen were left. Stephen, why don't you come to the bar by yourself? Joe suggested. There's only one car. It's not enough to fit all of us. Kim frowned. I can squeeze into the back seat with Stephen. No, this car belongs to a wealthy friend of mine. It's expensive. What if something happens to the car because there's too many people sitting in the back? I won't be able to afford the damages. Besides, I'm sure Stephen is perfectly capable of driving his own car. Kim was getting very close to losing her patience. How would a car be damaged from her and Stephen sitting close together? Joe was obviously making ridiculous accusations. Fine. If he was going to be like this, then they would just go home. She didn't want to come to this reunion in the first place. When Kim was about to inform Joe that they would leave early, Stephen interrupted her.
It's fine. You guys go ahead. I'll call you later.
At least you know your place, Joe said. He got in the front seat and slammed the door shut. Kim let out a sigh as she looked at Stephen apologetically. If it weren't for Amy's grades, she would have never come here, and Stephen wouldn't have had to deal with all this.
I'll be okay on my own. I'll be there soon, Stephen said.
When Caitlin pulled Kim to the car, she reluctantly got in. Joe didn't bother waiting for Stephen and told the driver to get going. Stephen got in his own car and headed to the bar. When he arrived, there was a crowd of people gathered on the street. Stephen stepped out of the car and made his way through the crowd. At the center was the same car that Kim and Caitlin were in. A man who looked like trouble was standing next to the front seat where Joe was sitting. Joe looked at the man, who was wearing a t-shirt and baggy jeans, and then at his cheap car. He took out a stack of $100 bills from his pocket and stuffed it in the man's hands. I admit that it's our fault for hitting your car, but you're the one who drove in front of us all of the sudden.
Here's 10,000. Let's settle this peacefully. This man was not a kind person either. He threw the bills in Joe's face. I need my car for work. What am I going to do with 10,000? Buy me a car to compensate. Kim's university classmate, Carl, came rushing over. Joe, what happened? Is this person bothering you? Don't worry, I'll take care of him. Carl stood face to face with the man. He used to be on a sports team, so he was confident in his strength. If you don't know how to drive properly, then don't drive at all. Your car is worth pennies compared to his. I doubt you can even afford the repairs. The man wasn't fazed. So what? It's a fact that he hit my car. Carl stepped closer. You have a really bad temper. Why don't you work on improving your driving skills before cheating others out of their money? Carl staggered back and motioned for his classmates to come forward. 10 people surrounded the man in a heartbeat. None of them wanted to miss the opportunity of getting on Joe's good side. Joe got out of the car and the man one last time. You'll be the one to regret, not me. He's injured. Should we really just leave him here? Kim asked in a worried tone. What's wrong with that? Carl said. We didn't even that hard. A familiar voice called out to Joe. Even if you barely lifted a finger, you still have a way of making yourself look like you did all the work. Instead of trying to act cool, you should prepare yourself for the incoming disaster. Joe looked in the direction of the bar's entrance and noticed that Stephen had already arrived. What disaster? I don't know what you're talking about. Not all of us are incompetent like you. When Carl saw Stephen put on airs, he felt an urge to give him a good. The only reason he didn't was because of Kim. Stephen chuckled. It doesn't matter if you believe me. When the time comes, we'll see who's really incompetent. In this city, no one would be able to threaten Kim's safety as long as he was here. Kim pulled his arm. Stephen, stop making things worse. One of Kim's university classmates noticed her necklace. Kim, is that Fergus's necklace? It can't be a fake, right? It's limited edition, and it's worth at least $1 million. I'm not trying to look down on you or anything, but I don't think you can afford it. Kim caressed the necklace. It's real. Stephen gave it to me.
Hi, I'm Stephen.
Want to know my secrets?
Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of Secret Succession now.